Hello, everyone. We had such a huge quarterfinals. We needed to pull out the big guns and bring out the quad box for the first time here on Power Spike. It's myself alongside Dom, Yamato, and Monty. All four of us here for the 4 quarterfinals matches. Great matches, except maybe the one that it was the one that I thought was going to be the best one. T1 versus TES. Like that was a stomp and half. I guess it was cool if you're a T1 fan and you want to see like good Zays just fucking blind pick whatever he wants in game 3.
Hold up. I have to talk about Yamato's Bucky's water bottle real quick.
This is my pride, bro.
I love it. So Yamato, I have to tell you, I didn't know what Bucky's was until recently because they've mostly been contained to Texas, which I know you went to. But recently they put one next to my hometown in Colorado, and it was such a big fucking deal that this thing opened. It was crazy.
Everybody was talking about it. Take over the world, man. Just let Bucky's take over the world. I don't mind, bro. If it's just a one state, the global, we're all under the Bucky umbrella. It's fine. Just eat briskets and buy water bottles and hunting equipment.
I like Bucky's, man.
That was great. I just think it's funny because it was a huge deal because I come from a town of like 200,000 people, so that's exciting when that happens there, I guess. But I had my first Bucky's experience recently.
Yeah, what did you have?
I got some brisket. I was there in May, actually, right after it opened.
What did you think about the brisket? Because like for somebody like, I mean, we ate other Texas barbecue while we were here, but like I was surprised about the quality. I'm like, what the fuck for like a gas station? Like
it's great for what it is. Like, is it the best brisket ever? No, but it's like very good. It's quite good.
Yeah,
for gas station brisket. Bro. I just slammed 3 burgers. We were sitting in the car because there's no seating place, and I bought 3 just to be safe, and I just slammed them. Easy peasy.
To be safe from what? Safe from hunger?
Safe from regret.
Okay.
Bro, we drove 2 hours to visit the Bucky's, like, am I gonna fucking walk away with regrets? It was fantastic.
I appreciate that you bought the Bucky's water bottle and brought it back to Germany, though. I appreciate that. That's a great move.
Yamato's story about buying brisket in pounds is just great, right? It's just how many pounds do you normally get? Quarter pounder is like one of the things you get at McDonald's, and then you can kind of adjust from there. So 2 pounds of brisket or whatever you had there, Yamato, was pretty great. Good to see that you brought some America back with you in the form of Bucky's. Man, America is going back anyways after FlyQuest lost. We'll get into that in all the matches here in just a second. I was just thinking, it was Monty's birthday a couple days ago. Oh. Happy birthday, Monty. Another year older and wiser and leading the way for us.
Also younger than Dom, Monty? Are you younger than Dom as well?
No. Please.
Monty's got the skin.
Younger than Thorin. Okay, we'll take it.
And Richard. I'm not younger than anyone here.
Thank God. Thank God.
Yeah. It's my birthday in a couple of days as well. In 4 days here, and I just been finding myself lately just tearing up a little bit more. It feels like getting a good cry out every now and then. Just life feels really good. I'm here at the LCK. I'm in Korea. I have stable work. I'm surrounded by friends, and I must admit, I let a little tear out yesterday as well as FlyQuest played like a North American team always dreamed about playing. A lot of the time, they show up to get their ass kicked. They say they're going to try their best, and then they play really tight. They try to play meta against these Asian teams. That's not what FlyQuest did here against GenG, the #1 rated AWS ELO system team in the world, one of the best teams in the world. They showed up and beat the shit out of them for 2 games, and then, but in their own style. What did we make of that match? Because although we had 2 other great matches, it felt like that was the match that everyone's going to remember from this quarterfinals here. What did you make of it here, Monty?
Look, I think that I do have to preface this with a bunch of negatives because I just know that Dom's going to be coming in hot with the soliloquy about the greatness of North America in the future. Look, did they win, guys? No. Okay. No. They're not progressing to the rest of the tournament. Did they look better than they have, or any NA team has, for a long time? Sure, right? But also, I will point this out. If NA is supposed to be a major region, they are the number 1 seed from NA. This is the kind of performance we should be expecting out of North American number 1 seeds, not the usual performance, right? So I do hope this continues, but it is an aberration on what we have seen so far for the last many, many years in League of Legends. There's not really a reason to believe that this is going to repeat itself, especially with the winnowing down of teams in North America next year. But it was great growth from FlyQuest. Like, honestly, this is a roster where you could really potentially see something, particularly Masu got significantly better over the course of the year. I mean, a lot of the changes they made were very prescient, putting Quad in instead of Jensen. Jensen was playing terribly, and promoting Quad was definitely the right move. It seems like the coaching staff was really on top of their shit, and I think credit to the FlyQuest GM and the FlyQuest management that put this team together and actually put the coaches around them. Because one of the biggest improvements was Busio, who played terribly at MSI and in spring playoffs, and he looked extremely nervous. And then the moment Mythy gets dropped from Cloud9, he just gets snatched up by FlyQuest. And I know from talking to Papa Smithy that Mythy was really impactful on like training Busio specifically. So even though Mythy may have had too much on his plate at Cloud9, once he got to FlyQuest and could really focus on the positional coaching, I think Busio's improvement was really, really noticeable, right? So I think the combination of Damonte, Nuke Duck, Arrow, Mythy, all of the coaches that were over there did a really great job of training this team up. And I think they made the most out of their appearances internationally and performed really well. So I think that's great for them. And they put on a compelling series. But there's a lot of caveats, such as GenG really didn't play very well. It looked like GenG was overconfident, which has been a problem for GenG this year, I would say, overall. We'll get into GenG later, but, you know, hats off to FlyQuest and Masu, I think, in particular. It's a very impressive performance from a rookie.
Yamato, get in there.
Yeah, on my end, I think that like contextualizing with everything that we know about the past and everything, I think in regards to what FlyQuest has achieved, I think is incredible. I don't think that like knowing that they play against GenG, there's a lot of like variables that are at play, of course, single elimination, and also with the break, and of course everything that is going on in regards to the tournament. I think on the flip side, looking at GenG, I do think that Lehens and Pays looked pretty damn terrible, you know, in regards to their counterparts. I think Chovy had great games, he had bad games. Like in the context of him compared to everybody else, I think he had a fucking solid series, good series. In the context of like him being number 1 player, I think there's arguments to be had that some of those mistakes cannot happen. But I think just eyes on Pays and Lehens, like they did like so many egregious things that really flipped the position into the hands of FlyQuest. And I think the whole conversation is about how they, like FlyQuest has like shaped the meta and like brought out new picks, which I think is wonderful. But I think it's always silly to me because always the conversation post-world is like European teams just need to play 3 blocks and then we're going to be better than Eastern teams. So we just need to pick unique champions. But it isn't that easy, because I think always how the argument is framed is as if the Eastern teams are dumb as fuck. Like they adapt in series, they adapt in the series, and that's what happened in game number 5. They also out-strategized them. They opened the Yone, played the Smolder, which is something that maybe could have been predictable, but I think
it was literally predicted live on one of the co-streams that Yone was going to lose the series.
Yeah, it's like this is something that they played, right? And to follow that up, right? It's like Eastern teams, like LPL and LCK teams, always when they're tournament winners, they are also innovators. And in order to innovate, you need to understand where the meta is at and how it got to that point. I agree with the notion that the game isn't figured out and there are champions lingering in the position that can break the game, but I think the conversation is too far in that direction, because I think the key thing still, gameplay is king, and FlyQuest played fucking well. Like Whippo had a great series, Masu played insanely good. I think he outperformed Pays the whole damn series, in my opinion. I think in the end, how you play and how you play out those positions when you have an opportunity to win, that is usually like the difference maker. G2 this time around, right? They had a winning position against T1, 3 inhibitors open, they choke the Nash, and they don't get the smite down. Like winning out the positions and playing them out like they did in game 1 FlyQuest, just simply pushing side with a strong Galio and playing it simple and clean and understanding that the enemy is human in the end. I think this is what's crucial, because I think this conversation about how picking new champions, I think it's so over bloated and always the conversation lacks all nuance. So I just wanted to highlight that as my little point here in regards to the series. But across the board, I think FlyQuest, I think anyone should be fucking proud, because it's GenG, like perceived best team at the tournament. To do this, to take them to 5 games, I didn't expect shit. Like I put my eyebrows on the line, and I started to imagine like how I'd look like without eyebrows, and it's not a good sight, you know. It's not a good sight. I would just permanently look shocked, and then my stream would just be ruined for the next 6 months, you know. Like, I don't know what would happen here, you know.
It might make it better, bro. You could make a whole thing. You could draw on different things
with no eyebrows.
That would actually be insane stream. Just sleeping streams with no eyebrows. Holy fuck! I don't think I've ever seen that before. That's new content, bro. Imagine the possibilities.
Don, what did you make of the series?
I thought it was really impressive that FlyQuest was able to play out like some even positions versus GenG, because I feel like that is what GenG has been literally better than every team at the entire year. If you watch LCK, it's like, I mean, the joke I always make on my stream is that GenG's comfort zone is like being down 2 Drakes and down 2,000 gold. They go into like the 3rd Drake fight down 2k gold, but and down 2 dragons that they have to fight, and they just out team fight you there, and they just end up winning the entire game. So seeing FlyQuest beat GenG when it comes to setups was actually really nice. It feels like FlyQuest learned a lot throughout the tournament, like understanding, for example, when people make these minor mistakes, like Chovy R's forward in the first fight, Busio snaps on him, flash combos him, and Chovy, like it's weird, right? Because my expectations for Chovy are just extremely high. So when I see a series like this is an underperformance, like a clear underperformance in my mind from like what he is capable of as a player. Like seeing him make consistent errors or like position, get his like ulti blown and stuff like this, it's definitely something that I criticize him for. But at the same time, it's like NA teams don't normally snap on people that are making misplays. Like they don't have the confidence to recognize a minor misplay in the heat of the moment and all react instantly. So I think that was really impressive. One thing I will say though is I think that stylistically this is, even though it is GenG, I think stylistically it's one of the best matchups for Fly. Like people, I've seen like threads where people are like, well, if Fly played this good against GenG, then they're definitely better than BLG and Hanwha Life. Like I've seen this narrative now on Reddit where like they could have beaten anyone that's not named GenG. It's like, no, I actually think that other teams would play.
Was GenG versus FlyQuest the real world finals?
I mean, you have these conversations, but it's like, T1, for example, would play much better into FlyQuest than GenG did. Like these fast-paced teams, like ones like BLG, I think BLG would just roll over FlyQuest, because you see what happens. Like Fly is very susceptible to having a game snowballed on them. You saw it in game 2, you saw it in game number 4, where if another team gets a lead, FlyQuest makes a lot of these minor errors. They just end up in an insurmountable disadvantage. And other teams play more of that style. So I feel like GenG actually is a decent matchup because they give you a little bit more breathing room to play the game. And the way the GenG wins is through, farming on side and setting up objectives well and team fighting. So they actually allowed Fly to play the game in some ways. But yeah, I mean, I was really impressed with how FlyQuest played out the entire series. Like seeing clutch plays. I mean, people were memeing about it in my chat, but it's actually true. They're like, Masu did better at his first worlds than Doublelift did at all of his worlds combined. Like this is like the best best North American AD carry performance we might have ever seen. And for me, I think that this was a much more compelling series than previous series that I've seen from NA. Like everyone's comparing it to the one series that NA has won at Worlds versus Korea, which is the Africa series, but that series felt super weird to watch. It felt like Africa was just collapsing completely, and it didn't feel like C9 had to hit some massive level. Like I feel like the way FlyQuest played was at a much better level compared to what C9 did. Obviously, I'm comparing it to the time, like compared to what C9 did at the time versus Africa. I was just really impressed by the ability to play with that amount of poise and just clutch out so many situations. I mean, there was a lot of times where I could see like the writing on the wall. I could see the fights in game number 1 and game number 3, the ones where NA normally loses, where it's like, oh, it got so close, you had the advantages, and then you see the fight and it's like, oh man, like one guy died, and then the whole team ends up trying to salvage it, they all end up dying too, and then the game becomes unplayable. Like, I saw those moments, so to see FlyQuest push through and win those fights, it did actually mean something. And one thing that I wanted to credit for this is, like, I think that the fact that TL and FlyQuest had this battle in North America, that they pushed each other in North America, I think this actually did make FlyQuest a much better team. When you look at the way that FlyQuest was getting beat by TL earlier, like the 2v1s, TL was just shitting on FlyQuest. There was some games, like for example, game 5 in upper bracket finals, where they did like the Kaisa top versus Wukong thing and they ended up super far ahead. It feels like the fact that TL was pushing FlyQuest when it came to lane swap throughout the tournament made FlyQuest lane swaps much better. And if you look throughout this tournament, FlyQuest had a lot of very good lane swaps. They had like the Scion lane swap. They had the game 1 lane swap versus GenG. They came out ahead in a lane swap versus GenG. I don't think that happens without them having that level of resistance domestically. So I feel like that we had 2 teams sparring against each other. They learned from each other, and I think this is the value of the competition. So I just wanted to point that out, because I've been criticizing like LEC for not giving G2 enough resistance, and I think that this was a big reason why we saw FlyQuest do well at this internationals. I think that they had that domestic resistance. You know, they played a bunch of matches against each other, and it was really close. Like Fly versus TL, I think it was like 12 wins to 11. It was like 12 wins for one team, 11 wins for the other team. So they battled throughout the year, and I think they pushed each other to improve. And I see the improvements in FlyQuest when it came to the lane swaps at this tournament. I thought they had a good lane swap versus Hanwha Life as well. Like, they had good lane swaps versus some of the best teams in the world, because they were able to actually have that experience, get the shit kicked out of them in lane swaps, and adapt it into their own gameplay. So I was actually really happy to see FlyQuest show up, because it didn't feel like a joke. You know, it didn't feel like, oh, we got it to quarterfinals. I mean, NA made it to quarterfinals last year with maybe a more impressive Swiss stage, because they actually ended up beating G2 last time to get there, but it felt like nothing. You know, that NRG, it felt like that versus Weibo, it felt like they could just never win. Where here it looked like they did belong, like they were playing the same game for the most part.
Yeah, Dom, the writing on the wall thing that you're talking about, that was trauma. All North American fans' trauma was all out on display of like, wow, good early game. For some reason, GenG took a bad fight. Oh, here comes the throw. It was trauma, baby. Monty, I saw you smiling earlier while Dom was making an explanation. What did you want to say?
Oh, just he brought up the Cloud9 Africa win, and I wanted to say that Keen almost became the first Korean player to lose to NA twice. He was very close.
Yeah. Forgot about that. Real quick, as we have 3 other quarterfinal matches to go through, and just our quick thoughts. Who was the MVP for both teams here, in your opinion? Yamato, let's start with you.
I think Keen for GenG. I think he was tremendous the whole series. I think even in the games that they lost, right? I think the Renekton game, he was like farming Bippo on side, punished him for TPing bot, right? And he was insanely good. Like, there was that play on bottom side where they killed him with 4 people and they opened up mid turret, top turret, and I thought, oh shit, Western macro, oh no, we just 3k gold lead shrunk to nothing. And even the Rumble game, like, he had crazy Rumble ults in the game 1 that they lost. I think Keen almost single-handedly with the kill that he dropped on Masu when Masu eat forward on Kisante, just broke the whole game open because he hit like the timers on Iceborne, got to push out the wave 1v2. I think Keen was just amazing the whole series.
He was also very close to winning game 3 if Masu hadn't hit his arm guard.
Yeah.
I mean, that flank was really good.
For sure. Agreed. And on the other side, for FlyQuest, I think the main thing that impresses me so much is just like Masu's performance. It's like, in terms of like driving the game, I think FlyQuest as a collective played super good. I think that something that Whipple does super well, even though sometimes he dies like a goofball. I think in terms of how he uses his health bar as a resource, is not afraid to push her forward. I think this is also super good. I think just synergistically, FlyQuest did a very good like collective effort to do as well. But in terms of just knowing how AD carries, usually like AD carries in games like these is usually the main pain point. Like when I look at, for example, Hans Sama against T1, like he's ahead on Draven, and then he's supposed to he's trading with the Gragas on bot, and he just fucking botches it and gets completely outplayed, right? Like those are the moments that usually Western AD carries falter in my mind in recent times. So just because of Masu being able to step up and actually have presence with a gold lead, I think that's super, super impressive, because in the end, this is the main thing that stands out to me as a problem, as I mentioned before.
Monty, how about you?
I know Masu sounds great, but I want to give MVP to Bwipo's Twitter performance. That
God,
has been absolutely insane.
Let's talk about that one. Let's talk about what he tweeted to Masu, because that to me was like, that was one of the hardest tweets to read that I've ever had. And I wanted to know, like, I know Yamato is like, he coached Bwipo before, and he's good at seeing the positives where I only see negatives. How could you interpret this tweet in a way that is not incredibly demeaning? So here's the tweet that Monty is probably referencing here.
No, I'm referencing a different one, but I also enjoy this one. We'll get to my favorite one. There's more than one. Anyway, continue.
So the one that I wanted to bring up here. So Masu, after the loss, he said, couldn't have asked for a better first year. Your guys' support pushed us more than imaginable. See you next season. And Bwipo replied to this, and he said, you trusted me to do my thing and played every situation to the best of your ability. Only one AD has ever lived up to that before. Be proud. Is that not fucking crazy to tweet? Like, because it's not even about like the fact that he did well, or like, it's like, hey bro, you're crazy, bro. For a rookie, you played really well. There's nothing about him. It was just like you could say this if you went last place, right?
See,
like you trusted me.
The most important thing that Masu did was
trusting him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's literally what he says. That is just what the tweet says. The most important thing you did was trusted in me. And you played every situation to the best of your ability. Did he play the situations well, or just to the best of his ability? One of his ability is fucking dog shit. If his ability is fucking horrible, then he played it to the best of his ability. It doesn't mean anything. So it's like, only one AD has ever lived up to that before. Be proud. Is that not like?
I didn't
okay,
take
so
it
what is
that
the
way.
positive there? How do you take it? Because like I actually don't know how else you can take it besides for it being like all about Bwipo.
I will say, yes, this tweet is about Bwipo. The Bwipo tweet is about Bwipo, but it feels like the context is we came together trusting each other and we did our best. I don't know about this. I can't really defend the second half behind it. Only one, I guess he's comparing him to
the Reckless.
And like, again, Reckless is one of the great AD carries of the West. So that's,
but it's not anything about like Masu's skill. It's like, hey bro, like you might, like it could be that he was the worst AD carry that Bwipo's ever played with, but it's just the other guys just didn't trust him to do it. So the other guys just didn't trust Bwipo the same way that trusted him. Like
when you see
Yamato, I need to hear Yamato's take on this, because when I saw this, it's just like completely
Bwipo lawyer signing him.
Okay, Bwipo lawyer. Let's hear it.
I think. I don't know. I think with Bwipo, especially after a series like this, I imagine like emotions run really, really high. And basically, in my mind, the tweets that we see is like the draft version that all of us might delete before we post the actual thoughts. I think because obviously, if this was phrased in a way, thank you so much for your effort. You're so fucking insane. It really meant a lot to me that you trusted me in my gameplay. Then it like reads completely different, right?
Oh, of course.
It reads completely different. But here's like,
because
I'm
you
gonna
had
flame some AD carries. I'm gonna headshot Hans Sama. Upset too. Sorry.
I have a powerful counter argument for you, because I'm gonna pick a tweet that happened 2 hours later. When by all accounts,
what's coming now?
Emotions will not be running high, which is the following. And by the way, this tweet went insanely viral. It currently has over 1 million views and 62,000 likes. It says this: it's tough to stay positive, but we made you guys believe. That was the goal. But no, the goal was to win the fucking game. The goal wasn't to make people believe. Or do you think you're in some sort of feel-good sports movie right now? This isn't Cool Runnings where you crashed your bobsled and everybody fucking cheered while you carried it over the finish line. You dunce. Like, you needed to win the game of League of Legends.
That one was
inspiring children. He literally thinks he's a fucking superhero and that by flying through the sky, he's gonna inspire all the kids.
Look, that one I could give him like credit for because it's because I could see that one being like, at least we made you believe. Like, at least there's like I can understand the mind. But
no, he says the goal was to make people believe. The goal was to win worlds. The goal was not to inspire belief. The goal was to win a fucking tournament. That's just a lie.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just
a lawyer once again signing in.
And then he said, and then Bwipo said, maybe, and then he added in a follow-up tweet, maybe the real Worlds playoffs were the friends we made along the way. Like, what the fuck is this? That tweet was fake, but you can't tell. For all you know, based on what we've said, he might have said that, and you would believe it.
Well, look, the Masu one is definitely crazier because because number one, he doesn't even say Masu played well. It's like, hey, bro, like, you trusted me. That's good. Also, fuck you, Upset, and fuck you, Hansama. It's like, what the, like, imagine Upset and Hansama reading this shit. It's like, because I mean, Bwipo is just like, he's buddy with Reckless. He like tweets like, hey, had dinner with my goat. I learned so much from him like the day before. And then it's like, then he just phrases this where like in a way where there's only 180 carry that's ever lived up to that before. It's like, who could you be talking about, bro? Who could you be talking about? Like, you only played with 4. And we know you love Reckless, so what about the other fucking 2? So it's like, he just, it's just so crazy that in that timing, it's like, instead of being congratulating Masu at all, like for like, maybe how about the fact that he played fucking well? Like, for a rookie performance, I mean, we're all here and we're like, damn, Masu had an insane performance. Like, what a rookie 80 carry performance. One of the best North American international 80 performances we've seen. Straight up. Like, we haven't had many, bro. It's like normally when you say something like that, you have to rack your brain. It's like, well, hold on. Let's think about all the great North American 80 carry performances and compare them. No. It's like there's nothing. There's like nothing else to fuck even compare it to, right? So that was like that was one of the times where it's like, holy fuck, Masu looked giga Korean, giga Chinese in these games, bro. He didn't look American at all in those games.
No, you know what I think? You know what I think he looks
Canadian.
like?
What?
A Middle Eastern John Oliver.
I see it. I see it. All right.
I don't know. Whenever I hear that, I'm so scared. I just get terrified. Does anyone else get terrified instantly?
No.
If Gilio said this, we would be running for the hills.
Yeah. I'm always so terrified. Like,
I just want to chime in on the second Bwipo tweet because he's my boy.
Okay.
I gotta chime in on the second tweet as well.
Lawyer.
I think on my mind, to translate, everything that's been going on with Bwipo and so forth, I do think that he sees as when you win a league and you are the supposed best team of a league, that comes with a lot of responsibility. And I think that for the longest time, because he was holding back and seeing how everything played out, I think everything just came out during Worlds. And in the end, too, here, right? He's been talking to like players and calling them paycheck stealers and like attacking certain elements of the LEC and the LCS. And I think there was a lot of truth to what was said. It was just the way it was done, which was very, spontaneous and brash and harsh, which to some degree can also be helpful. But I think that mantle, he put so much pressure on himself, which maybe is out of place to do, because there's an element of humbleness that should come with being a winner too. And I think these things just really, really collided over and over again. I think that he saw his responsibility as someone that won in LCS to push the rest of the region. And I think we saw many variants and many versions of that. And however you view that,
I just want him to own it. Like, this is the weird thing. He should just be like, God's bleed, bro, or whatever. Whatever he needs to fucking say. But like, that is significantly less weird than pretending like he has descended from the heavens of Europe and given the people of North America hope. Like, what the fuck is that?
He just needs to run his tweet by me. I'm just gonna like. It could be done in such a better way. The same.
I want him to be more aggro. I just want him to tweet "Koreans suck, lol." Like, that's fine.
Jesus, man. Like, look, all I know
for me.
is I'm happy that Yamato's on my side, because I know if I ever just start tweeting out completely mentally ill shit, like Yamato will find like the good in there. He's like, I know Dom, and like he'll just be able to work it out, and he'll be able to defend me in a way that I couldn't even defend myself in. So I appreciate that Yamato's on my side, because to me, Whippo just comes off as like super like just like it's like no self-awareness, like very self-involved, like self-loving to like a point where it's just like, bro, you're on a team. You got teammates. Like your teammates played well. Like, can somebody else have something, bro? Can it be like you're a fucking beast, Masu? Like this performance was fucking insane. Like, can it just be something about Masu? I don't know.
Yeah, next time. Again, emotions running high. It was a tiring, brilliant game, a tiring season, and I'm sure there's inside information and knowledge that they have from each other about that kind of like conversation. And
they didn't have the knowledge about the Smolder, though, the very predictable Smolder pick, which they've literally played into Yone very recently and also multiple times at Worlds. But
they could not.
Who could have known? I would have started with maybe watching the finals where they won game 2 playing Smolder into Yone.
Wait, no, they did they?
Yeah.
I thought that wasn't that Hanwha Life that won that game? Or wasn't that
I can't remember.
Wasn't that Quirky? I thought that he lost.
Chovy played into Zeka game 2 of the summer playoffs.
Oh, I thought he played a game 1 and then lost to Tristan. I gotta look back at it.
I thought it was Power.
He did lose to Trist. Here you go. Boom.
Monty is just the LCK historian, no matter what, bro.
Well, wait, what the fuck? Wait, do I have a wrong perception of the series? Nah,
it was the upper bracket. It was the upper bracket match.
Oh! I thought you were talking about the finals.
Okay.
Well, I just want to throw this one in here. Yamato, not only the whisperer. Why is it not loading? Load. Yamato, not only the whisperer of Whippo here, but also he was on the broadcast. Yamato, did you see your tweet got on there? Like, what were you?
Yeah, I was watching.
Oh shit!
Yeah, what were you feeling
It was the one time I was happy to see a tweet cover the items on the broadcast.
Nah, bro. Like it's for me. I love the World Championship and I hate the World Championship because I'm just sitting there. It's like we have 3 more best of 5s and then the year is over. And that really hurts my soul. And I just want to be in the moment because I'm trying to make the world see more nuance and everything and more beauty and everything because everything's black and white. Oh, this guy's a joker. This guy's boosted. This team is shit. This region is shit. It's like there was one play that went wrong. Like, let's relax.
Let's your own tweet then. Defend your own tweet.
Yeah.
Quote Yamato right now. I just want more worlds. Also, quote Yamato 22 hours ago. Historic moment. The beauty of this series is only possible in a single elimination format. Explain yourself.
Yeah. Look, I think that we can all agree that there's good parts and bad parts about double limb and single limb.
There's only bad.
Right?
There's only bad parts about single limb.
It depends. It's like,
no.
I had these conversations with Dom too about jungle, right? It's like I understand his gripes with jungle, but I also understand that there's a lot of boosted players. The average player needs to also be able to jungle and press Zyra spells and like have a indicator of where to just take the camps and just get away with that.
Well, this is what Riot understands about jungle before we move on, is that jungle players, you only have a couple months where you can handle it before you start becoming just mentally insane. So like that's why they only buff champions like Zyra and Brand for like 2 months. And they like buff them to the point that they're like the best champions of the entire game. And then they just nerf them out of complete viability. Now we never see Zyra like ever, no matter what, at this tournament, right? That's what they like doing because they know that if like the Morgana player or the Talon player that they really want to jungle, if he has more than 2 months in jungle, he'll just become like the fucking Joker and Batman and just start like bombing cities and hospitals and shit. Like it'll just be fucking crazy. So you just have to make sure that you keep the junglers, like you just get the jungle guy to play 2 months and then you swap in a new guy and you rotate them in and out so that people just don't end up having this experience where they end up becoming like a schizophrenic. So continue though, Yamato.
Like I just so it seems that like I didn't want to come across that I distract because that's like an easy way. It's like jungle is in good state and then Dom just goes on a tangent just to make sure that I didn't pull that trick. I think double elimination competitively way better, right? We're always going to have the better final. The best team will most likely win, right? We have all the matchups that we are craving for. But I assure you, in this moment, right, it's like the same way at MSI. Most fans would walk away from that series against T1, and let's say G2 was eliminated there, they would be like, wow, G2 was so close. And then when they played again, they got completely Bobby Schmurled. I think in a world where FlyQuest plays against GenG again, I think they would get completely Bobby Schmurled too. I think that in these moments, right, the magic of it all dies the moment these teams play again, because the surprise and the element of understanding your opponent is really, really crucial. Because in all of these best of fives, I think that the LPL teams, the LCK teams showcase like a very, very good level of adaptation. If you look at the final game of the Bilibili series, they made the right adaptations. The Weibo Gaming series as well, they picked Jax, Aurora 1-2, Slam Ezreal, realized that AD carry is strong, ban out Ashe and Kaiser, and then all of a sudden Gala is on Jhin, right? Like these adaptations carry over to the next best of five, and I think in a world where FlyQuest played GenG again, they would get completely damn smoked. But that's competitively honest, in my opinion. I think that's good for competitiveness, because in the end, if GenG lost today, do we walk away thinking that GenG is the worst team? Maybe, but maybe not, right? In most cases, not, because there are elements of surprise that need to carry over. So I think these are the two sides of the double elimination, single elimination coin, in my mind.
All right, I know you want to keep going, Dom, but like we've been on this topic for almost like an hour now, maybe like 40 minutes, but like we got 3 more matches to go to, plus a couple roster things. And that's what we're gonna go to next. One confirmed big news that came on out, and one leak, another leak that kind of recently came out.
By the way, these people that leak, it's like, how do you leak? Like, how do you leak? Are you just a fucking idiot, or how do you constantly leak? Anyone who leaks, it's like, bro, I have so much like privileged information. It's like you just keep your fucking Discord on another monitor when you stream. You use a delay. If anything gets leaked, you fucking end the stream. Like, if you're a leaker, like these people that leak, it's just like so obvious that they're just either completely incompetent people, or they're just fucking like doing it on purpose in order to drive hype, or like, you know, as a power move, right? Like in the negotiations, having the leak come out can be a power move.
Yeah, the agents leak thing is a lot of the times, guys.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, Nisqy's offered 400K like from Shopify Rebellion based on like what we're seeing, like what that's the insinuation. And then like who else is in conversation with Nisqy? Now the other team might offer more. So it's like these leaks are never, oh, it's an accidental. I just slipped them on the stream and just showed my cock to everyone. Oh, god damn it, bro. I hate it when this shit happens. Like, what the fuck are you saying, bro? You didn't leak that shit by accident. Like, come on, we're fucking adults here.
For those of you that don't know, it's on the top of Reddit. Nisqy was talking to a French streamer named Tiki.
Yep.
Tiki. And Tiki leaked the Discord message where it says going to NA 400, around 400. Like little squiggly after that. Fudge, contracts, an import 80 carry, and a support from LLA. That is the rumor, potentially. Shopify, not exactly sure what the game plan is there, but just Dom obviously shared his thoughts. What do you make of a roster of Fudge, contracts, Nisqy? I would imagine it's B-Boy. I mean, B-Boy is already there if it's Shopify. What do you make of this kind of core here, Monty?
Okay, I'm just seeing this now, so I didn't see this earlier. Wow, I'm very underwhelmed.
Compared to their last roster?
I think their last roster had a certain charm to it. You know what
There's
I mean?
no charm in Fake God. I'm so done watching Fake God play.
I was actually #1 Fake God hater. That's true.
There's nothing that's even like there's nothing compelling about Fake God's play at all. It's just like he's gonna show up, go down 20 CS, and then kind of like misplay team fights. Nice, bro. Nice. We've had him in. I'm happily wasted 5 fucking years with this guy. Thank you.
I mean, I appreciate in spring at least Shopify had some entertaining games and made things close, and like I enjoyed watching their games. The longer the year went on, though, into the summer, I found them less entertaining. I'm just surprised that Nisqy wants to come back to NA, because he was getting paid well from what I understand when he was on SK, and was like quite a big acquisition for them. And even though a lot of people have been underwhelmed, particularly by his, international or playoffs performances. He has been one of the most stable players in Europe, and he's a very known quantity. And I just don't know about this team because who's the carry on this roster? You know what I mean?
B-boy.
B-boy, all right.
Literally, yeah. I mean,
I guess it has to be that.
Would it be B-boy? Would it be contracts? Could you just if it's a carry jungle?
Contracts has never been a carry player.
He's his Viego maybe, but it's just it's not. He's not that guy. It's different than the Blabber, Nisqy, Cloud9 roster that used to exist. And I think when we consider Nisqy as a player, he does better when he has strong other players to empower with on his team. And I just really Fudge now and contracts. This just feels like a team that does nothing.
I think they do a lot. Actually, I feel like it's the opposite for me. It's this is a team that will have good skirmishes, but they'll just probably just get overpowered when it comes to mid to late game. I think contracts early game jungling and his ideas of how to play the map are generally pretty creative and pretty interesting. And I think that somebody like Nisqy that backs up a player, I think that Nisqy plays well with the more active junglers. I think that's the type of jungler that he wants. I think the problem is they're just going to be limited when it comes to carrying later on. And I think that they'll probably just, they're not going to have firepower. And I feel like a team like this, they're just not going to have the setups to actually be able to contend with the top teams. They'll kind of be able to make some plays and they'll just be strong and then they'll just throw every game. That's how I see this team. They'll just throw every game.
Quick thoughts, Yamato. I know is mostly North American squad.
No, it's for me when I'm curious about Support, right? Support is unknown, but I think Support's mostly in North America just don't know how to play the game. That is the biggest paycheck stealer position. Before Busio started playing good because of the whole Mebdi injection, right? Before that happened, he was also just a headless chicken that would mechanically play good, but he would be like my biggest pet peeve about League of Legends is when Support just walk on the mid wave, just hit the minions, throw spells on them, don't do shit. And every North American game that didn't have code JJ, all Supports were just showing on vision all the time. It's I'm here, guys. What's up? I'm gonna punch these minions, and it drove me nuts. I think that's the main thing for me. I don't know what support they're going to get. In my mind, I would kind of wish, in terms of how what is your risk tolerance? Are you building a team just to skate by, or are you building a team to actually try to beat Team Liquid and FlyQuest? And I think sometimes, I don't speak from a position of knowing what the market is in terms of what players you can risk on. I could see a world where Fudge is a lot better after suffering, getting benched. A rebirth like that can go a long way. I think Contracts is solid. I think Nisqy is solid, but do I see them doing anything to disrupt? Will they be weird enough to disrupt? I don't think so. I think it's just another one of those rosters that, has a lot of known names, but known names come with known quantities too. I don't see them making a dent in the already established top two.
Yeah, I think that for Fudge, the reason why I have more hope is he didn't just get bad for no reason. It wasn't one of those things where certain players where it's oh, he's just doing everything well. In some ways, people appreciate they're oh, this guy is working really hard. But when somebody works really hard and they consistently are getting worse, compared to the competition, that just means the player isn't talented. Where somebody like Fudge, even though it's annoying, he did end up caring less about the game. He wasn't playing as much solo queue. So the fact that he is went back and then as soon as he got benched, he grinded solo queue. He went to Korea. He's been grinding solo queue in NA. He shows up in all the high elo games. The fact that he's playing the game a lot again, that's what made him good originally. And now that he's had this this fire lit under him where it's oh shit, I am benchable. He went from being somebody who's oh, I'm one of the best in the region. I'm somebody who's always going to be on a team no matter what, to oh shit, my job's in jeopardy. I need to do what I used to do to get good. That gives me some fucking hope. That gives me the hope that he can be good again because he's actually playing the game again.
Yeah, just thinking about supports that are available, Huhi comes to mind first. I think
there's no way they're running back Huhi in contracts. Hell no. There's no way they would run back Huhi in contracts.
After that sack down?
Yeah, after that sack down, are you crazy, dGon? What the fuck?
Just have the conversation, man. Just have the conversations. All right. The other news that came out.
Also, I want to attack this really quickly about the 400K a year rumors.
Yes.
For people who are wondering, wow, that sounds like a lot of money. Well, who else on this roster is going to cost a lot of money? Number one is my first question. And number two, even if we know basically that the rev share is going down from what it is this year to next year. But even if it drops down to like 1.5 million levels, which is probably where I think it's going to land, 400K out of that for your star player is actually not that much money, guys. You can actually run the team profitably on 1.5 million and still pay your highest paid player 400K. So that number honestly is not terribly shocking to me.
I think also the Nisqy like stocks have been lowered so much by this last season in people's minds. Like when you hear people talk about Nisqy now, they're like, oh yeah, he's fucking dog shit. Like he's always been shit. Like he's just incapable of like carrying. Like this is how
he's really good. I mean, he was probably in Cloud9's best iteration of the last 5 years. It's just MSI got canceled, so we never actually got to see it.
I mean, he's somebody who's consistently overperformed expectations every year, except for maybe this year. And it depends on what type of, like, maybe personal expectations were maybe higher for SK. Like they thought Nisqy would play better individually, but team expectations is like what he's always consistently raised. Like people forget what Mad Lions looked like when he joined that Mad Lions team in 2022. Like that was a team that went from not making playoffs to being second regular season, and literally because they were second regular season, they auto qualified for Worlds. Before they even played best of fives, which they lost every single one of. And then, you know, the next year, 2023, like just last year, he was winning a championship with Mad Lions. Like he was like playing well. And a lot of that championship came off the fact that he was able to incorporate the Gragas mid into their gameplay. And it felt like this guy was just Thanos on the champion. You couldn't give it to him. He had like insane win rate on it, as well as being able to play a bunch of like any playmaking champion has always just been a Nisqy champion. So I do think that this was probably one of the worst metas for him. Like the summer meta is probably one of the worst Nisqy metas you could ever imagine, with it being like a 80 carry mid meta with like carry jungle. I think that was bad for Isma as well. I think Isma is somebody who wants to be playing tanks. He wants to be playing Sejuani. Like he was good at like Rel jungle, Poppy, these types of champs. And you know, the meta was something that never really suited them. They just simply refused to play the meta. I think that hurt the team a bit. But I feel like Nisqy has become pretty underrated as a player. Like there are things that he does considerably better than like almost everyone else in the West when it comes to making plays, understanding dive timers, like being able to play the map from mid lane is in the early game, not talking about side laning, but in the early game, I think it's kind of been a lost art for a while, and we just haven't got to see him use it because of the direction that the game went into.
Yeah,
I just want to add, forgive me, on the topic that Monty brought up in regards to the revenue share being cut down. Like that is hurting a lot of the LEC teams. In regards to the news and how the LEC teams took it, they basically have contracts that are running longer than how they knew about the information in terms of how much money they would receive for having like franchise teams. And I think like if you look at the elements of what's going on, we're going to see, like if you look at Vitality, like they made a big commitment to rookies. Like everyone's trying to cut costs. I think in regards to SK2, like cutting costs, Team Heretics cutting costs, like everyone's just trying to fucking cut costs. That's why the conversation, probably the next thing that is going to come up, because it's a perfect segue into it, is like that deal that came up, right? Like the deal that was, I don't know what the fuck that wording is on the phrase that the Wooloo, like LEC sheepies was like, they were considering to offer this. It's like, what the fuck? You fly in the room and you heard them talk, or what? I don't know what happened there. But the deal was, of course, the whole KC, like Kalist for money, Hansama, Yike, and Mickey, right? And if you're in a position where Kalist is signed till 2026 and you're going to inherit the contracts from G2, that's a lot of fucking money that you have to spend. And these are the metrics that you always need to measure things by. Like in the end, it turns out that they want to get rid of Oyake and Mickey. They want to give them for free. Take them, guys. We don't need a buyout. Just get rid of them, because otherwise they will sit on the bench and they will bleed them dry, right? And I think in regards to most player acquisitions, we're moving into a period in time where the old contracts that kind of extended past 2025, these are the contracts that the teams want to kind of push away and get rid of, to then re-sign players under of course cheaper contracts. So now we're moving in a direction where the budgets are very, very, very tightened, and I just wanted to highlight that because it will be very, very evident in all the teams that are built.
This reminds me of, and I know I brought it up like 2 or 3 weeks ago, Monty, but the NRG sale episode that you guys had of the Four Horsemen, where there must have been like termination clauses within the contract if the company was sold or something like that allowed them to get out of the contracts for cheap. It just kind of shows that the LEC in Europe, in terms of their contracts and what they had expected and the money that was being put in, is behind the cost cutting that happened in NA about what 4 years ago. And so now the contracts by NA are a little bit more controlled and managed to the point where now you can offer someone.
It's
like
also
Nisqy
German
400.
labor law, I think. Also I think it's mostly German labor law that makes it so that they can't get rid of these contracts. But also, I would imagine if they're even under German labor law, if G2 was to be eliminated from LEC entirely, like NRG was, I doubt they would be bound to that contract because there's literally no team for them to play for at that point in time, right? So I think it would probably be a similar situation. I don't know that for sure, but that's my guess.
Last little bit of roster news, and you guys we'll weigh on this one a little bit shorter. BDD returning back to KT earlier. Last month, it was said that BDD is no longer due for military duties, which is huge in Korea because everyone is supposed to do that. But there is a clause in Monte, you can help me with this. I believe if you aren't selected by the random lottery for 7 years or 5 years or something
like that,
you then no longer are eligible to do it. Therefore, you don't have to do the military portion. I think you still have to do like community service, but that's different than going to military, having a military job for the 18 to 24 months. So BDD available, and KT snatched that opportunity today or yesterday and signing him for next year. Quick thoughts about this one, Monty?
I guess he just really loves being in prison. Because that's what are they going to do? Are they going to fill him up with like Pioshik and like kind of wash Deft and Barrel again? Like, please, KT,
I thought Deft was done.
Well, probably.
Potentially.
Yeah.
I thought that was the whole thing, bro. I'm so okay. Look, we can't have these last dances for players that don't actually fucking retire. Like, if I see Maple and Levi last year after all the bullshit that we had to deal with this Worlds, I'm gonna be so pissed. Like, I'm gonna start just rooting for them to retire. Like, you can't have the last dance where it's like everyone has to like treat you all different. It's like we have to celebrate you extra hard, and then you just like keep on playing. Like, you can't just do this every fucking year, bro. Like, what the fuck is this?
No. I think Deft is probably done. But no, what I'm saying is like, can we please put some good players around BDD? I think though, what they're likely to do is, because the salary caps are going to start hitting for LCK this coming year, I think they're likely to promote a lot of players from KT's challenger team. And KT's challenger team is very hyped, guys, and they did have a very good performance in summer. But like, it feels as though we're moving into BDD and the rookies, which makes me feel bad because BDD was the second best mid laner in LCK this year, and I guess this is my life now.
No. Well, you mean second to Faker, right? Because Faker was the best in LCK this year.
Faker was the best.
Yeah,
this is the
according
if you
to
don't think that, you
T1
should just
Twitter,
get shot.
T1
like
fan
that's
Twitter
pretty much
accounts. That's
yeah.
true. Yes.
Yeah,
this
because
is
that's
KT
like
trying to do the T1, honestly, right? This is their star mid laner.
You're actually not
Ninja
wrong.
Turtles.
That's a good analogy.
And hoping that they find Zeus and owner in
But if those guys,
I forgot, Hype, whoever it is.
If those guys perform, we have to remember to give all the credit to BDD. Have to be like, look at BDD, look at his leadership. Like, he told them to play well. Like, he said, "Hey Zeus, solo kill the enemy top laner here. It's really good for the game." Like,
yeah. All right. So those were two big pieces of news that kind of came out recently. Again, as the offseason continues, we'll cover them throughout because there's just a lot of news coming on in. All right, before I know that we kind of just dove into the FlyQuest and GenG one, but we got to keep the show moving, and we'll dive into all the other matches through our segments. So next up, we got ourselves a little bit of fraud alert because we have some eliminated teams that are on out, and one team that made it through, and they didn't look so good. So let's get into this week's episode of Fraud Alert, Top Esports, LNG, and GenG. Okay, well, Top Esports, they were an in-form squad going up against T1, also in form. You felt like this was a draw that had firepower. At least I felt that way. LNG, they went 3-0. Scout comes off the plane, beats everyone, and then they come out flat in their game, and then GenG almost are the victims of the biggest upset in world's history. Let's start with Top Esports, since we haven't really talked about this match. They get smoked 3-0 by T1 in games 1 and 2. They are just walked across the map. T1 just play macro, don't take any fights that they don't want. There's no ability for Top Esports to get in there and force the fights that they want. Game 3 was a little bit closer. T1 eventually closed it on out. What did we make of it? Yeah, it was closer comparatively.
I appreciated how Carrier played Pyke so that he could get a Pyke skin at the conclusion of Worlds if they win. I appreciated that.
They're getting the skin games in there. Let's start with our resident expert. Dom, what did you make of the Top Esports series against T1?
Well, I unfortunately called it before before Worlds even started. I just didn't see like a team like Top being able to beat a team like T1 in a best of 5, like in a best of 5 that actually matters. Top Esports has done this all year. Like every single big best of 5 that they have played the entire year, they have failed in. Like think about it. The spring finals, then when they played G2 at MSI, then when they played T1 at EWC, then when they played against Weibo and BLG domestically in LPL playoffs, now at Worlds. Like this is just who Top Esports is, bro. The lights are too bright for them. They play significantly worse whenever they end up having any pressure or any resistance at all. And yeah, I mean, like they just don't deserve to advance any further than they did. I think that the performance from T1 was good, but I think that T1 is going to be playing at that level going forward. Like that is just what you expect from T1. You expect them to play well. It wasn't like I know a lot of people were like, damn, if they beat Top Esports this hard, then imagine what they're gonna do versus GenG. It's like, okay, but like, can we not just agree that Top Esports was not doing anything? Like, what was Top Esports doing in these games? Like, it felt like they were just. They just showed up and they were spectated everything. It was just really pathetic to watch. So, yeah, I don't know. It's par for the course.
It's really difficult to tell. Like, I do think T1 performed well, and we'll get into T1 later. But I think the problem with Top is that in this series, they didn't put up any kind of reasonable resistance whatsoever. They just it felt like they were taking every fight, whether it was good for them or not. I mean, they would literally get poked out and then try and like re-engage with Jackie Love on like 25% HP. Oh. It was just, they would blow flashes randomly and then try and like fight the next fight anyway.
It wasn't even like they were engaging. It wasn't even like they were engaging. They would just would walk up to get fucking murdered by T1. It wasn't like they're like let's coordinate, like engage, like Mykles flashes forward and they like all hit one target, but he ends up living. It was just like, and now we walk into the area with no vision, and T1 would just fucking murder them. It's like, all right, nice man. Like you guys showed up and did the same bullshit you always do. Well played.
What was funny too is like, Top got objectives, but it's only because T1 decided not to fight objectives. It's not because Top was like choosing which objective to go after, because they were grouped. Every objective, every one, they were there every time. And T1 was just like, we're not going to fight you this time. You get whatever, just have the grubs. It's okay. We'll just cross map for now. And it just felt like T1 was getting all of their win conditions met. They were dictating the entire pace of these games, and Top Esports were just the little puppets. They were just the little marionettes on the end of the string for T1. So I felt like Top Esports this was like the fucking Chat GPT Chinese team. You know what I mean? It's like piloted by fucking robots. It was bad. Yeah. It was bad to watch.
They had no ambition. Like that was like the number one series was just zero ambition. Like they were just showing up to fucking go home.
Especially
quickly.
That last game. Like, what are they even doing? It looked like they just wanted to lose in the last game.
Yeah. But that's Top Esports. Like that is literally how they've been like the whole year. I mean, they did the same thing versus you too. Like
it's crazy. Like considering like Jackie Love, world champion, Mykles, world champion, Maokai, world champion coach. Like what the fuck is that team doing, man? Like 369, bro. This series mind-blowingly bad. His Galio game, trash. AD Cannon, Witsend second, garbage. Rumble. We know about his damn Rumble fucking causing forest fires left and right. Like this series really, really pissed me off. Really, really pissed me off because Top Esports, like they look like fucking Nongshin Academy or some shit, playing against T1. They looked Western, like they just walk up to every objective, and like T1 is very good at spitting on you if you're bad. Like they push her, they walk on you, and like there were situations where Zeus is like basic attacking 4 people, and they're like, what the fuck? The first time they engaged was like 18 minutes in game 3 on that tri-bush when they were like 6K goal behind. First time in the game. I couldn't believe what the hell we're watching. Top Esports, you know, like I interviewed Mykles when I was in the venue. I was like, oh, Mykles. So every time in crucial moments, you guys have so much experience, but every time in crucial moments, crucial best of fives, you played so bad. For example, the G2 Top Esports series. You guys were trash. He's like, oh, we've been addressing this. We do breathing exercises. We do meditation. I was like, shit, man, this is the Western solution. This is the Western solution. This is like the Wim Hof thing. I was like, okay, God bless, that's good, but all right. And then finally, always the last best of 5 they played at any competition has always been so awfully. It's so disgusting.
It's so bad every time.
It's so disgusting. It's just looking at this roster, like. There's so much firepower there, man. Look at this roster. Like at the beginning of the year, I was like, damn, this is a roster. Jackie Love, Mako, Cream. They picked up Cream. He doesn't have that much experience, but this is the mid lane you want to pick up from Dom's beloved OMG. You know, they fucking smurfed the year before on fucking everything. And then this is how they play, man. Honestly, pathetic, bro. The Top Esports owner must be livid, bro. It's like, we had the craziest offseason ever, and this is what we get, man. Like, we signed everybody left and right, you know, but nothing, just nothing. Pathetic, really.
I don't know. I mean, I think that people misinterpret it as like you like taking away from T1. Like, it's just that like I have standards for T1 to play what. Like, I had T1 coming in. Like, when I did my fucking like my personal tier list, I was like, okay, I think that like the best teams of this tournament are BLG, GenG, Hanwha Life, and I think T1 is going to be everyone except for those 3. Like that is what I said coming in. And it's like, yeah, it's like you expect T1 to play like this. They're not going to play like fucking pussies in big matches. And when you watch T1 lose, like when they lost to BLG twice at MSI, which we're not allowed to talk about, by the way, because like that was a world. So now when we like try to have discussions, it's like, don't you know that the LPL always loses? It's like, I just need BLG. I need T1 to actually beat GenG, so we get BLG versus T1 in the finals. And then if BLG wins, then maybe we can actually talk about the games instead of narratives. But it's like, you expect T1 to play at this level. Like the problem that T1 has, like domestically, has always been that they get ran around the map. They'll like overcommit people to objectives. They'll have a wave pushing in that they shouldn't let. And then they end up having to, even in these games, they have to invest extra resources to solve mistakes that they've made around the map. Like they'll have to like TP to a turret, they'll like lose an extra TP, or they'll drop waves they don't have to. Like that, this is what T1 is not normally good at. But T1 is good at like clutching out the fights. They use their abilities pretty well. But they can just lose to teams that have superior planning and superior macro. And it's like Top Esports didn't do anything. I mean, that is like where you saw like Top Esports be able to actually make stands. Like if you want to see the best version of Top Esports, watch them play like a regular season best of 3 versus like BLG. Like that's when you'll see like
they
peak
won
Top
their
Esports.
last 14 games in a row. They won 7. They swept 7 best of 3s to end the summer regular season.
That's when you'll see who Top Esports really is. And then as soon as the lights get bright, you look at playoffs, them versus Weibo, them versus fucking BLG. You're like, who the fuck are you guys? Like, but I mean, it's just expected at this point, right? Like it's just one of those things where, what can you say? I mean, that is just how they play. They're just very bad at dealing with pressure. They're the softest Chinese team, I would say. I mean, that's what I would always say. The terminology I would always use is I would always say they had a glass jaw. They're the fighter you hit them one time and they get knocked out instantly. Like one good shot and they're done. And that's how they were in most series. I mean, normally in series, they come out pretty well. Like their first game is good, and then they just get progressively worse until like the last game, which is just absolutely disgusting. It's like unwatchable. But this time they just came out the terrible energy from game number 1. You know, game number 1, TN gets invaded, Cream gets 3-manned. Then they just fucking like have the other fight around mid where Carry is there first. They die, and the whole game is just fucking snowballed from there. So at least this time they didn't start out good and they got progressively worse. They just started off ass and they played consistently ass throughout the entire series. Well played, Top Esports.
Yeah, well, I like the glass jaw thing because they just got carry-barded, and then after that they weren't able to recompose. Just a couple stats here, I guess. Yes, it's T1 stats, but it also is telling of Top Esports. Zeus the whole series, 1 death. Carrier the whole series, 1 death. Gumayushi the whole series, 0 deaths.
They played a game. They played 3 games. One of the games, Top Esports got 0 kills. Like, yeah. I saw all these stats. And it's like, bro, of course, no. Top Esports didn't kill anyone the whole series. Of course, the guys have like 0 deaths on the other side. Like Top Esports just showed up and did nothing. Like, well, how are they? What do you think they died to? The fucking map? Are they dying to minions? Or like they're gonna fucking die to Grump? Like, what are they gonna die to? Top Esports is trying to kill them. Like,
yeah,
what the fuck, man?
Tough one there for Top. Let's get the fraudulency rating. Dom, I'm interested in yours here, just because of the context you put. Expected, but how much of it did you expect compared to their potential?
I don't know. It's like I don't know if I can call them fraudulent when I've just seen this happen so many times. Like, I mean,
TN was probably the best jungler in the Swiss stage.
That's true.
They're kind of fraudulent. They have to be at least mediocre fraudulent.
Literally, go to my YouTube video for this series, and literally all you have to watch is the first 7 seconds. And I'm like, I really hope Top Esports shows up today, because I could easily see them showing up today and just doing fucking nothing. Like, that is literally the first 7 seconds, and then we just watch like the rest of the video is just them fucking doing nothing, right? So it's like, I don't know, like, in my mind, this was very possible. So it's like, I don't consider them that much of a fraud here, because this is what they've seen the entire year. Like, what does it mean to be a fraud? Like, I think it's more fraudulent if you've looked good and then you're doing something abnormal. But like, when you've been fraudulent the whole year, are you really a fraud anymore? Like, don't you just kind of suck at that point?
Asking the deep philosophical questions.
Not answering the question.
Look, I give these guys like a 5 out of 10.
I would give them like a 3, 4. Like, I don't know. Like, I thought they could do this shit. Like, I thought they would lose the T1 in an important series if they played it.
I think Cream, like, we gave him a pass at MSI for being underwhelming, but he bounced back really well at the Esports World Cup, and they did beat GenG, not a best of 5 and a best of 3 there, right? And obviously GenG looked like shit at that event too. But, you know,
because they didn't want to be there, which their owner came, or like somebody who within GenG, I forget, like apparently they said it was CEO, then the Reddit thread's like, actually it's not CEO, it's like a marketing, I don't even know who it is. But somebody who within GenG came out and said that the players did not want to go to EWC. So that means that GenG forced them to go to EWC, I guess.
Well, GenG's making an office in Saudi Arabia now, so they can enjoy more time in beautiful Riyadh. I hope they like it, because they're going back over and over and over and over again. But anyway, I did think like Cream, it looked to me as though, you know, potentially Cream had gotten over his international jitters. He certainly did better in the Swiss Stage of Worlds. I think Tien had a wonderful performance throughout Swiss. 369 may have been a little bit shaky, but as you say, with the number of world champions or MSI champions on this roster, world's MVPs like Tien, right? You would think they would do better in this situation. They put up more of a fight at Esports World Cup versus this same T1 team. It's a matchup we've already seen this year. So yeah, it was a shit series, but I think they're at least a little bit fraudulent. 5 out of 10.
Yamato?
On my end, I'm just looking at the prospect of what the whole year is in terms of like the signings that they made. I do agree that it's like someone is less of a fraud if they are consistently just, you know,
a fraud
being shit in front of you, you know. It's like they have those series where they are complete ass and they are playing super bad. I'm just thinking about the context of the whole year in terms of the signings that they made. Like even at that same MSI, it's like they went 5 games to GenG, looked pretty fucking competitive. They had a good series, in my opinion. That was like a really fun series to watch. And then they get 3-0'd by G2 in a very pathetic fashion. At the moment, you know, pressure's on. I think in that context, they are not fraudulent because they fucking have shown that the entire year. But in terms of where I would have placed this team at the beginning of the year, Jakob was insane last year coming into this one. Freed from EDG after they had the issues with their AD carry, you know, doing the whole thing with fake accounts or whatever the fuck, and the mess with everything, and then him moving on to top esports. That gets me excited. 369 after JDG last year. I'm like, damn, this is a damn roster. And on that context, I think that in terms of what they achieved, I am very, very underwhelmed, but I think I land on like a 5 and a 6, you know, somewhere there, you know.
All right. Well, there you have it. There's our rankings of top esports. Someone maybe not expected, but knows that they could lay an egg, and did so here against T1. Let's move forward to another LPL squad. The most impressive LPL squad in the Swiss stage, LNG 3-0. They get to draw in the region kill match against Weibo. You're thinking, okay, like this is winnable. Scout has looked super on form. They falter as well. Monty, what did you make of LNG as you've been on the LNG train for years?
Less this year. I like the Tarzan. I like the Tarzan. The Tarzan Scout version. Obviously, this is the Tarzan versus Scout version. If we're talking, I guess it depends on what point we're talking about. Because if we're talking about before the tournament, I had no expectations for LNG because Scout was not even going to be here, and like if he got here, has he been practicing with the team? How much is this nonsense with him being trapped in China, unable to leave, dealing with all his other bullshit? How much has this affected his gameplay, right? So I would say, for me, not that fraudulent. Like Weibo was the other finalist in the LPL finals, and yeah, you can look at regionals and say, hey, maybe that reverses your opinion a little bit. But I just had no expectations from LNG coming into this. So I would say maybe a 3 for me before Worlds. Now, after Worlds starts, they get out 3-0, but their run is, maybe not the most difficult run into the 3-0 of all time. But Scout does look really good. But in this series, like the other problem was like Xiaohu had been underperforming, and Xiaohu did have a very good series here, which is much more what we would expect of a player of his caliber, right? And Tarzan has been good, for the vast majority of the summer split, outside of that first little bit.
Yeah, the very beginning, he looked really
where it was a complete train wreck. So I think some of the people that may have been underperforming previously, Breathe has had a very good tournament. And Zika. I think Breathe has been outperforming Zika at this event specifically. And Crisp, he was shaky, but he also is a world champion and he is capable of stepping up. Light has been extremely good. Yeah. So I think like Weibo definitely had it in them. And I also think that, Weibo did a very good job at like finding the team fights, collapsing into the side lanes. Like LNG's macro didn't look as good a lot of the time. Like Weibo I think had a good series, but I wouldn't say that LNG is super fraudulent by my standards, because I didn't expect anything.
Yeah, when it comes to draft here, Dom, when a team goes down 2-1 and now they are flipping from the side, they've lost now 2 in a row. They flip from the side that they were on before. How do you did LNG? No, LNG picked a different side. They didn't lose on the same side on all of their losses. Does that make you worried in terms of preparation? Do we feel like that was a preparation thing, or do you feel like they were just getting outplayed by Weibo and they wanted to change it up?
Well, I think the thing that Weibo came into the series with is the willingness to do the Aurora Yone trade and be willing to just play the Aurora. And I think Xiaohu has probably been the best Aurora at this tournament. It feels like he really dominates lane, and then he's able to play well outside of that in the fight. So I feel like for LNG, I guess it's one of those things where they really stuck to their guns because they were the Yone team domestically. Like they were the team in China that played the most Yone early on, where they had a bunch of comps like the Yone Rise, for example. But in this game, it felt like because the Rumble's not up, they weren't able to run the Yone Rumble comp. They end up just with the Renekton, Sejuani, Yone. It just felt kind of dry. It felt like it was too easy for the enemy team to comp into them. And this is something that Weibo has done pretty well throughout the tournament. Is they're one of the first teams that has been drafting anti-Yone comps. And I think that throughout the tournament, we're seeing the champions that were really high prior, had really high win rate, like Yone and Sylas specifically. Throughout the tournament, it's like these picks come in and everyone's like, oh, they're super OP. But then when people realize, it's like, wait, these champions are much more conditional than other champions. This is not like B1 Azir when Azir is just super fucking broken, where it can kind of do everything. It's like it can go grasp, it can go tanky, it can go side lane, it can lane versus anything. And the only real counter to it is artillery. And it's really hard to pull off artillery into pro game, because if your structure is ever broken, or if there's anything that can actually flank you, you're not able to play the game. You're not able to actually win these games. So I feel like Yone actually is a champion that does have counterplay. You just make it very hard for the Yone to engage into. You draft comps where the Yone doesn't really have a good angle. And you see a lot of these Yone games where just in order to play it, it's like you need to have not only a Blade of the Ruined King, you need a Stride Breaker, then you need a QSS just to be able to even look at the enemy team. And by then it's like, well, how much work are we going to have to do to just try to make this champion viable compared to something else that would be better on a less on a fewer item threshold, I would say. So for me, I think that LNG, they didn't read the series super well, and I think that Weibo was able to just play comfortably because they knew exactly what LNG was going to draft in every single game. Like, it seemed like it was very obvious that it's like, oh, yep, Zika Renekton, okay, they got the Sejuani, yeah, they have the Yone, like, this is just what you expect. Going into the 4 or 5 bans, they're just banning out the Kai'Sa, they're banning out the other ADs, and they're just forcing Gala to play Jhin. It feels like LNG was not willing to, get weird enough. And I feel like this is kind of a problem that FlyQuest had. It felt like FlyQuest ran out of gas when it came to Game 4 and Game 5 with their weird picks. It felt like in Game 5, a lot of the weird picks were just weird for the sake of being weird, but they didn't really make sense in the context of the game. I think that we saw this from LNG as well. And the teams that have done well, I mean, BLG, I thought it was really impressive the way that they were able to read the series and kind of predict, Zika has been playing the Sylas. They played it in the first game. We played in the third game. We're going to make something that's anti-Sylas. We're going to make Sylas have a hard game. We're not going to give him a lot of great ults. We'll play the Galio into it and try to stifle him in that regard. So I think that in general, LNG, they stuck too close to their prep, I think. And because of that, Weibo had a very easy job countering that prep or countering the predictable LNG. I feel like there's something to be said for giving the enemy team champions that they'll pick and then making the game extremely hard for those champions. We saw another example. I think this was like something that was done in Game 1 by FlyQuest versus GenG, where normally people would have this mentality of like, oh, you can't give Canyon Skarner, but if you give Canyon Skarner and you make it a very hard Skarner game to play, then like you're fine. You just need to be willing to take those risks in draft if you're going to try to beat a team that is potentially better than you. And felt like LNG was they were incapable of taking those risks. But that's kind of how LNG has been the entire year. I feel like they're a very stable team, but they just do what they do every single game. And that's why I don't see them beating the teams that are actually better than them, because it's just like they just don't have that X factor.
Did you have Weibo better than them coming into the tournament?
Yes, I did. Like on my tier list, I did, but
yeah.
I didn't know who was playing for LNG. And then like throughout the tournament, I'm like, okay, like LNG's playing better. Like maybe they can win. But like coming into the series, I thought that it was like when I looked at odds and stuff, I was like, I think that Weibo is being really undervalued. I think even now Weibo is being undervalued. People talked about this series like Weibo and LNG are just complete fraudulent teams. It's like, what? Like I don't understand why Weibo and LNG are being discredited to such a degree. I actually think they're both like completely fine teams. I think they're pretty good teams.
Yeah. I don't know. I maybe having an expert on the broadcast to contextualize would have been helpful. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe like having an LPL person on the broadcast would be great. I mean, we know what it is. The only way to cast the LPL at Worlds, if you're an LPL enthusiast, is you have to go to a region that sucks more than the LPL and then cast there. And then if you do that, then you can actually cast the LPL at Worlds. Like it's just
maybe not even that, because they even if they bring in casters from the Asian region, like maybe you just get 2 NA guys and a European guy on GenG versus FlyQuest for some reason. So
it's what it is, bro.
Speaking of GenG, let's move on to that one.
We're just moving on. I don't get to speak, bro. I'm sitting holding my tongue here.
All right, go, Yamato. Go,
what the hell, man?
Yamato. I'm sorry.
You always pick me last, man, and then now you skip over me as well.
No.
I didn't buy into the LNG shit, man. I will say it here. I didn't buy into the LNG shit. I think that always in tournaments like these, bro, it's like, keep in mind who they beat, They almost lost to Team Liquid. The narrative would have changed completely. They almost lost that game. Like, they were getting dragged around the map. Macro-wise, didn't play well. The Billy series, very close. Dom pointed out to me that fucking been threw the poppy into him, and once again, the draft tweet was horrible for Billy. That was a big issue of theirs, and they were getting Yone on red side on 3 with the Rumble Nocturne, and they had the combo down. They did it well. They played against Damwon, had a very good read against them, and then Damwon was locking themselves into playing Ziggs, making Showmaker not playing what he's good at, and then putting, of course, aiming on Ziggs because they're afraid of the Ziggs on 3 because they threatened that. So LNG had like a very good draft tree coming into the tournament, and they leveraged that to getting 3-0. But my thought process, and I think everyone's thought process about this team, is that their jungle and support are ass. They are like, mechanically, they can like click the buttons in fights. But in regards to how this team, like if you watch some of their losses in LPL, they have some of the most pathetic losses because they just slowly lose. because the agency comes from support roles and jungle roles. And you know, the supports that people like to flame, those are, oh, this guy is hinting. No, he's just trying to fucking win the game. You know, actually, sometimes it comes down to that because you're trying to take opportunities that might be low percentage, but your percentage just becomes smaller and smaller as the game progresses. A good example is like, for example, Crisp against Team Liquid. Like, he looked like a fucking goofball engaging, but he understood the game. Lucian, Nami, Syndra, they're gonna poke us out, we're gonna get fucked. So he's trying to engage. In some cases, it looks stupid as fuck, but also in some of those fights, really did a good job. And I think that LNG as a team, their jungler after way summer, I was giga disappointed all year. I don't know what he's good at, you know? I don't know what he's good at, I don't know what he offers. He just looks stale to me. I don't like how he plays. Hang, I think mechanically solid, but he's one of those supers that I described when we talked about North America before. He's the guy who just hits minions and just fucking stands there. It's like, hey, what's up, bro? I'm on vision. Oh, enemy super is diving top. Oh, fuck me, I'm late. And you just can't play a game like that. So for me, the main question coming into that series was, is Xiao gonna perform and is Chris gonna perform? If they do, Weibo Gaming have shown way higher quality League of Legends in terms of the decision making, in terms of how they understand the state of the game. And in this series, I think Xiao will perform better than before. Crisp was way better than Hang, in my opinion, and Weibo outplayed them. So for me, in regards to where I place LNG, I think that Zika and Scout had a good tournament run up until that point, but it's only so far that you can go with only some pieces like actually performing, because when you're in game states where the support and the jungle have the agency to drive the map, this team looks horrible. And it was the Yon streak when they took first place, right, in the regular split, you know, with in the Heaven group. It was just a good draft read that allowed them to surpass it, because when Scout was playing Yon, he was like farming side, doing it for free, and that's what's so broken about this champ. It's a very high mobility meta. When mid laners can farm, when side laners can farm without the help of jungle support, they're okay. But if that's not the case, these guys get dragged around, and they just don't have a jungle and support to provide them with enough agency in the game. So for me, with my LNG read, I thought, okay, this is kind of up to Weibo. If Weibo's going to show up on the right players, I think they should beat. But I thought that LNG should be slight favorite, the way like bookies and the world talked about this. Like, LNG 3-0, they're going to fuck up Weibo. I was like, damn, well, what are we seeing here? But this is like maybe LNG slight favorite, but that's it. So my scale on the fraudulence thing, I think just I give them like a 1 or a 2. Like, it's okay. You know, this is just what I expected from watching them the whole year.
All right, pretty low overall here for LNG, despite having that Swiss stage being 3-0 and surprisingly beating BLG in that game earlier.
I remember when you qualify through D+, who is shit. You know?
Yeah. Wait, which is an LCK team, but I've noticed that everyone has just like from like the LCK bandwagon has just removed like Dom1 from being an LCK team for some reason. Like, have you noticed that? Like, it's been very weird, right? Like no one talks about Dom1 like they're an LCK team. They're like, look at the LPL getting shit on at Worlds again when top esports. It's like you realize that like that is like the first series that the LCK has won versus
Dom1's purpose was just to send all the Chinese teams to quarters.
Yeah. It's almost like all the Chinese teams were better than Dom1, right?
I'm not surprised. I said they sucked coming into this event.
Same. We all said that. Literally everyone here said that. But like,
I didn't say they suck, but I picked them to not make it out. That's right. It should have been KT
here, bro. Yeah, bro. How did T1 lose to them? How did T1 lose, bro?
Pillshit can't have the world's glow up if he doesn't make worlds.
We need some big name daddy at the World Championship,
that means Pillshit hopefully doesn't get on another possibly good team in the future, which is exactly what he deserves.
I think he will be, bro.
I don't think he'll be on a good team. He'll be on like Kwangdong Freaks.
Yes,
because he's gonna go
to KT.
Subscribe. I feel like that's the move. All right. And then finally, let's go to GenG. It was funny that you brought up the D+ thing, because on Instagram, LCK was like, hey, let's cheer on our LCK teams at Worlds. And they only listed 3 teams there. And I was like, what? You like fans will be selected to come to LOL Park and watch at LOL Park. So they were having viewing parties there. And I was like, why are we only have 3 here? Oh, that's right. D+ got knocked out. Sorry, not a GenG on the fraudulent scale. We talked a lot earlier about the series, but from the FlyQuest perspective, before we started the show, everyone, we're having a heated debate on whose fault this was from GenG for it being this close. Now we get to have it live, and we'll go to our perennially picked last analyst here. Yamato, you can go first this time.
All right. In my mind, GenG, I think we're all in unison about Lehens and Pays. Like Lehens is last place for me, bro. Like in terms of performance, I think we're all in unison that Lehens this series was so garbage. Like he was getting caught on Maokai. Like what he did on Leona was insane. No poise, no pedigree at all. Didn't show his, he wasn't swinging his nuts out. Like he was crumpling up. Like the way he lost Sums as well.
Blitzcrank when he sees Seraphine and Ash.
I was like, this is Kalista Blitzcrank, right? They're gonna drag them around, and then it's like a solid blind. But maybe
I'm like, this is your time to shine, the heads.
Kalista was opened.
Yeah, but it was into Ash. I feel like he didn't want to go Kalista into Ash. No, I was thinking like Blitz Draven, maybe something like this.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, like what I place Pays on and what they like perform on, it's like you're rolling out. You see the rest of your draft. Like you need some teeth here, because if you can't contest bottom side in this draft against the Seraphine Flex, you're going to have problems. But nevertheless, like the Jinx lock in, whatever. I think the way Lehens and Pays played was really, really bad. And the thing that we had a heated discussion about, not heated, but I got heated because I was passionate about this. It's like me being emotionally stunted, whatever. Chovy. Like, everyone just run away with the choky narrative. Choky. I was like, come on, man. It's like, in my mind, the fight where he got combo by Alistar, it's like flash combo Alistar. You expect him to flash. I get that, Everyone ranked him number one player coming into Worlds. I get that too. If we have that context, he didn't play like as you expect a number one player to do. But in my mind, if I compare his performance to anybody else, he still had a fucking great run at it, The Kassadin game was fucking solid. The Smolder game is fucking brilliant. I know people don't appreciate it, but he completely
after they beat Weibo, Chovy said in an interview about that Smolder game that if they beat Weibo in Swiss, he was like, I don't, I have to prioritize what's good for the team winning, not what's the most fun.
Yeah,
which is true. I think it's so funny that he says that about Smolder. I mean, and he's known to play Smolder. He plays Smolder into Yone or other AD mids. That's just what he's done.
Just to continue on the Chovy thing, because I think the Tristana game is the one that stands out to a lot of people, right? Because I think that the game, the first game, like he pushed forward. I think the rest of his team were being Western in that moment. They should have sent it. Sure, he could have flashed the combo and played. But if you, in my mind, when I look at this fight, I see how Skana plays, how Leona plays. Off of that Rumble ultimate, they all got just scared of a guy to TP. They could have sent it and maybe, won the game.
Was doing grubs, man. I don't know what you're talking about. He had very important things to do.
And then finally, right, the Tristana game, like he is winning the lane super hard. Like winning. He's in the winning position. Support jungle are coming. He doesn't buffer the Orianna ult. I get it. Mistake, big mistake, was hurtful for the game. But in my mind, I think it's still a solid performance throughout. He did a couple of mistakes, but it's like, compare it to any other mid lane at this tournament. Like Knight had shit moments too. He's my number 2 mid laner, I just think I hate this narrative that he's fucking choking, because I think performing at an 8 when you expect a 10 is still a solid performance. It's just that people look at the lens and look at Chovy in a way that, he should be performing at a 10 no matter what. I get that. He's the number 1 player, but, I think it's still a solid fucking performance, because my number 2, Knight, had some shitty games too, shitty moments too, and I don't mind that, because in the end, everything returns to the norm over time. Like if you look at the volume of games, you don't judge a player after one game, because there was same people saying, Canyon is so bad on Skana. I was like, go fuck yourself. Like, have you not watched his Skana gameplay like the entire year? One game is going to change the whole narrative about Canyon. I don't like that at all. So I fight back. That's why I get so passionate. I get passionate about this.
I love how Yamato is using the classic fans describing their favorite casters by shitting on other casters. He's describing his favorite mid laner by shitting on other mid laners. Sorry,
I love that too.
Go ahead, Dom.
I think that this, so my take was actually that I think that this was like one of Chovy's worst series in the context of games that he's played at Worlds, ever. Like the ones where he was getting so much flack for choking before, for example, when he was playing against Zika, when Zika was just completely cracked in that semifinals in 2022. Or last year when he played against BLG, where I felt like he was really far ahead, and then he was just making some misplaced fights. I didn't think that that these games should be that hard for him to play out. And I thought he made a lot of like crucial mistakes in games. Like even in the Kassadin game, it's almost like it ended up being a good thing because they tried to dive him, but he just lost his flash to the Orianna in like one of the driest ways possible, level 4. Like Orianna just like QW'd him and he just had to flash it under turret. And it like low-key baited Busio to try to dive him, which was obviously it just turned out terrible. Canyon ends up getting a free kill, and then then Nunu ended up trying to dive him later on, and then like the game just snowballed out of control. But I think that's a pretty easy Kassadin game. I mean, you're playing Kassadin versus Nunu. Like Orianna is a kind of difficult lane, but it is a mage at least, so it's not like an AD mid laner. And a Rakan, I feel like that's why the Kassadin was so good, because as the 3-man you can't pressure, where normally as a Kassadin, what you're really afraid of is you're playing into a tough lane and then they show up with like the jungler behind the turret and you're like half life and they just have like fucking Maokai Tristana or some shit and they just one shot you and you're like, okay, well, what the fuck can I do? Like, I'm stuck under the turret. So I didn't like really care too much about that Kassadin game. It felt like it was won by other factors rather than his play. And then like the Smolder game is just like, that is a matchup where I would expect him to win every time. Like, I'm considering the competition he's playing into. Like, if you have Chovy versus Quad, I'm expecting him to like dick Quad the entire series. Like, I'm just not expecting Quad to be able to like have plays in this game. I think probably the best game that Chovy played was the Sylas game throughout. Like, that was the game where I was like, okay, he's like playing like himself. I'm starting to see some of the advantages. He had like a very clutch Skarner ult in one of the team fights. He was playing well around like his cooldowns. It was a very hard Sylas game. That game kind of impressed me, but the other games I thought were really bad by his standards. I mean, he's just making so many mental errors that you don't normally see him make. Like the Tristana game level 1, like he doesn't know where the Rakan is. He just W's forward, loses his flash. Then when he then he just gets comboed by the Orianna. Like the Orianna just ults him. He doesn't buffer it, and he just dies. And this is like him with a counter pick too. This is the Tristana into the Orianna where you expect him to like play that situation better. That's not a hard Tristana game, right? Orianna Sejuani, I just don't think that's a very hard Tristana game to play. So watching him like make all these misplays, like I was like, damn, like if Canyon plays a worse game here, or if Keen is not smurfing on the Cassante, like they're just losing this game. Like they're just losing game 4 to fucking FlyQuest. And like for somebody who you expect, like with backs against the wall, I just didn't think he performed like at all close to my expectations. I mean, I have high expectations, right? I think he should be the best player in the world, like by a decent margin, but I just didn't see his greatness in the series at all. Like I thought Canyon outperformed him. I thought Keen outperformed him. And this is a series that I think should have been pretty easy for him.
Yamato, I
just want to ask you, just a follow-up, right? The Tristana game, do you think that's a difficult game? Or you don't think that's a difficult game? Because I just want to paint a picture, right? It's like Sejuani was using timers on mid perma, and his bot lane Ashe was like 40 CS behind. Like they were completely fucked on the swap. So the Ashe Maokai perma on the tower, Rakan perma and River. Tristana matchup, how it plays into Orianna is really, really fucking hard if you can't jump. You have to be able to jump. And Quad had the space to freeze in front of his tower, and even in these conditions, Chovy was 10 CS ahead before he got ganked. So leading up to that point, he lost his flash to the Rakan on the swap. I agree, but in my mind, that's not a fucking easy game to play. Like, that's a fucking hard game to play.
I think that's an easy game for him to play. I don't think that the enemy team has like threat. Like those are the games that I expect GenG to beat FlyQuest in handily every single time when I look at those types of team comps. Like that is not FlyQuest. Like I think that if you play against a better team, maybe that's a harder game to play. But when you're playing against FlyQuest, it's Tristana there. You have the counter pick. Like you have a Nidalee jungle. I think that's a game where like you just expect him to be able to play it out because there's just not much. There I feel like the timers where he's getting ganked. Like sure he has to jump on certain timers, but it didn't feel like there was times. Like for example, the game that Cream played on Tristana versus Sylas, I thought that was a much harder game when it came to like pressuring mid. Like I felt like that was much more annoying because on the timers where Cream really needed to pressure, it's like there's 3 people fucking showing up with like a Camille, and then his jungler ints the fucking Sylas a free kill, and then he's not able to really pressure anymore. I thought that was a much harder Tristana game than this Tristana game for Chovy. I feel like this Tristana game for Chovy, I think he just should have played better.
I was just glad to see the Tristana again because I think that they abandoned it during the finals, and it was a huge issue for them when it had really dominated Hanwha either in the bans in the upper bracket match or going back to the last time they met in the regular season where Chovy played 2 games and just completely shit on Hanwha Life. Like this pick has been noticeably absent, from their summer playoff run into this world championship. And I think it's one of the best picks for them and their style as a team. So regardless of Chovy's individual performance, like for me, this is actually an encouraging sign for them because Chovy likes to be in that side lane, right? They like to apply pressure. They like to dictate control of the map. And this is a pick that has allowed them to do that throughout summer and is, it can be used to do that again. So I was just frankly pleased to see it. Like, I think returning to that is something that needs to be in their wheelhouse if they're going to win this tournament.
But whose responsibility, because this is fraud alert, Monty, so whose responsibility was it to close the gap much cleaner than what they actually did?
Well, I think it was Lehens and Pays, right? But I think the problem is that probably, GenG, when they have come into events where they haven't been, or matches where they haven't been super motivated, they have looked really sluggish and underprepared and like overconfident a lot of the time. I've said this before, but they remind me of Samsung Whites, playing against lesser opponents. Like, they don't really play that well. Like, they lost to KT twice by like fucking around and finding out. You know what I mean? Like, they came into Esports World Cup and didn't play that well. And people will point to their record and they'll say, "Oh, look how well they've done." And they did. They had a phenomenally successful season. But, when they have lost in kind of stupid ways. Preventable ways, I would say. And when you come into this game and Chovy, you have a choice. Like, King comes in with the equalizer on the grubs and they're chunked out. It's like, you could either just take the grubs and wait for them to re-engage, and then you have that angle when you're in the pink warded brush, right? Or you could just go in and try and make the hero play even though nobody's following up. So either there is some sort of communication issue that is happening there, or Chovy is not communicating his intentions, and the rest of the team doesn't know what's going on. I mean, even in the game where the other game, FlyQuest 1, where Bippo TP's bot, when they don't start to get those kills and they're retreating, like, there's a chance to punish really severely the TP usage. And instead, they kind of just send it in and try and kill Bippo, and it ends up in a disaster, and Masu is able to completely hard carry that game based off of the lane win, right? So I really think a lot of these instances from GenG are them making plays that maybe they wouldn't make out of respect to a better opponent, but they're coming in and doing that here. So it's disappointing.
Well, yes. Okay. All right. I was going to say, like, I just find this debate about Chovy interesting between Dom and Yamato, because this is like, I feel like I would normally agree with Yamato, except this is Worlds. Like, this is the time.
I think the narrative. This is the problem. The problem with the perception of Chovy is this. People are like, "Oh, Choky," but they don't actually care about his individual performance a lot of the time. All they care about is that his team loses. And it's like the performance of his teammates, which definitely, it was definitely his teammates last Worlds, guys. Like, I think Chovy played very well last Worlds. And certainly Chovy has had, I think in 2022, he was not as good as he was domestically. But in 2023, I thought he was good. And his team was the one that let him down at that event. But he is the reigning MSI champion, right? Like, he's won the biggest international event this year.
Would he even be in your top 5 best players at this World so far? If you were to make a top 5 players at this World so far, like, I don't think he would be like in there for me.
He might be on the edge.
Maybe he's on the edge. I mean, I don't know. Like, I think that there's players on his team that have played better than him. Whereas, like, I don't like domestically is the fucking king, right? Like, when he goes to Korea, it's like just feels like he's the best player by far. Like,
that's true. But I think people also mistake the fact that they want to see some sort of like hero play from Chovy, and sometimes that happens. But a lot of Chovy's strengths is more subtle, honestly. And you're just not going to see like the hero. What he does in the Smolder game that's amazing is just like dominate the lane and get to 225 stacks by 18 minutes, right?
I think the context is like Quad is a bad Yone player. Like that, I think that is the context for me. Like you look at it from FlyQuest perspective. That's why I didn't want them to play Yone. His Yone is not like one of the elite Yones. It's not a Zika Yone. It's not a fucking Like, I guess, I mean, Scout is out, but it's not a Scout Yone. I mean, it's just not one of these Yones that you're actually really afraid of. It's not like Chovy's play against his own Yone, for example. Like, you see all the mistakes that Quad made in that lane. You saw it in the TL versus FlyQuest series. Like, look at how low the fucking prio was on Yone. There was games where it's just going completely through the whole draft, not banned either side. Even in 4-5, it's not getting banned. And like the big flex of that series was like, oh shit, Quad is actually playing the Yone in game number 3, and he's able to pilot it to like a somewhat competent degree. But that's like, I just expect Chovy to like always win that versus Quad Yone. And I don't think that Quad's Yone is like super insane. Like, when I think about Quad, I rate him on other picks. Like, I thought that what he plays pretty well is like the range champions, for example. I thought his Corki was pretty good domestically. I thought his Smolder was good domestically. I thought his Zeri was good. I thought he was probably the best Zeri player, mid lane Zeri player domestically. And I just didn't really like I don't know. That's just my expectation for Chovy to win that game. And then also, like, even in that game, I mean, he does like randomly get caught by like the Fiddle bot lane, like right before third J. It didn't matter because the game was kind of over at that point. But like, I don't know. Maybe my expectations for Chovy are too high.
Yeah,
I just think that Chovy is a player of incremental advantages, and people just don't want to appreciate that. They want the big flash. Like, Faker has always been a flashier player than Chovy.
Yamato.
And I think people just want that moment. And, you know, for the flashy moment, they will forgive a million bad plays. But Chovy, his floor is just so high a lot of the time. That's the thing.
I think just to add, I think me and Dom, we disagree on like some of the game points, but I think we do agree on this notion that it's like if all of us rated Chovy number 1, the standard he has set for himself is incredibly high. I just don't like how, which is probably has nothing to do with the conversation we have here. It's just in terms of how narratives are shaped, they are just so extreme always, because sometimes players individually are chained to the circumstance of the game. Like I remember after the top esports loss, right, against G2, it's like, Tian, he's such a choker internationally. It's like, bro, he cleared 3 camps in his bot lane, got double killed. Like, it has nothing to do with Tian, and people are just pushing some weird idea, right? And I spent my whole afternoon yesterday after the series, you know, having like a conversation about this. And for me, it's like, Chovy performed an 8, maybe like a 9, maybe an 8. I think it's solid. Still a solid performance. We expect Chovy to only churn out.
Like, for the context of like just anyone, or the context of like Chovy versus FlyQuest, what you'd expect going in?
Well, it's like we all agree that Lehens and Baze were griefing. We all agree that FlyQuest played well and prepped well. Everything can be true at the same time, right? In my mind, it's like we all say the FlyQuest played well, and we are proud of what they achieved and what they did in that series. Mm-hmm. And that level of resistance matters, right? Because we're not contextualizing to what we thought before. We're contextualizing to what we saw in the 5 games. And in my mind, right, when it comes to, for example, like we will discuss the minutia, the details. Just for me, if we all agree, like Chovy around 8, 7, that I don't mind that. I think that's okay. I think that's fair to point out. Maybe not in top 5. I think that's okay. I think that's a conversation to be had. Maybe if we're gonna look in hindsight, maybe that's going to be a point. But the way it's framed always is like, damn, he's just fucking running it, which is so far from the truth. Because in my mind, right, especially at this level, like with how Lehens and Pace played in tougher series, that can cost them everything. Like my concern now, I believe they're favored against T1, but if Lehens and Pace play at that level, like T1's boy is going to massacre them. They're going to eat them alive. Probably it's going to be different because a lot of things are more familiar, but in that case, if we frame it that way, then it's always depending on the circumstance that the player is in, because sometimes even the best player in the world can't carry. And in a world where your team drags you down, it drags you down. It's like Chovy, he did something incredible in spring where he dragged his teammates with 5 games on Aussie, right, against How Alive. Like, that's like incredible, right? But that's also circumstantial.
But if you look at that, right, and you're like, that's Chovy at like, to me, that's Chovy at a 10. Like those quirky games that he was playing, the Aurelian Soul, the fucking Azir game that he played versus Hanwha Life, like that to me is a 10. I don't think that this was just like 1 point under that. Like, how could this be a 9 if that's a 10? Like, I think that he was so fucking good. And like, you look at like his laning, his spacing, his team fighting, like his ability to make plays around the map whenever there's like any type of issue, like the way he's salvaging like unwinnable situations. I don't know. Like that to me is a 10. I can't put this at an 8 or a 9. Like compared to like that, and this is that's against tougher competition, right? That's against better players. I think he was playing at that level. So when I see like this FlyQuest series, I can't give Chovy I mean, to be honest, like I wouldn't give anyone like an 8 or a 9 from GenG. Maybe Keen and Canyon. Maybe I could give them like an 8.
All right.
But
well, let's give our scores. Let's give our scores here for Fraud Alert, just because we could go back and forth on this one for a long time. How fraudulent do you think this performance was here, Dom?
For GenG?
Yeah.
Compared to expectations, I mean, this is pretty high on the fraudulency for expectations. I mean, they played what was perceived to be by far the weakest opponent, and even though like FlyQuest did play well, a lot of the things that you expect GenG to be the best in the world at, it wasn't like they were the best in the world. It's like they were just losing to FlyQuest when it came to like setups and stuff like that. So for me, this is like a 7 fraudulency. I mean, they went to 5 games with FlyQuest. I think that's pretty fraudulent performance going to 5 games with FlyQuest.
It's also that I think in the games they lost, they had to make unforced errors. And I think the real surprise is that FlyQuest was capable of snowballing off of those errors, which is not something that I think they expected them to do. Like, I feel like GenG was more cavalier about the way they were dealing with FlyQuest. And, you know, they're like, oh, if we just like fuck up this outplay, then it's fine. Let's come back later. And like FlyQuest did a good job of slamming the door shut for the most part. Which was above expectations. But I agree with Dom, like probably a 7 is reasonable because they should have just clapped these guys. And they could have, like, there were moments in the games that they lost where they could have clapped those guys, right?
Yamato, let's close it out.
Yeah, I think lands and plays like were atrocious. Like I'm also around 7 and 8. Like I think before this series, the matchup against T1 that was expected right after T1 beat Top Esports, I think everyone would say just GenG easy favorite. They are smoking them left and right. But now there's like question marks. Like if Lens and Plays are gonna play like this, right? I think that's a series that they could potentially lose now because the stakes are high and we're at the World Championship. I do think GenG should be the perceived favorite, but before this FlyQuest series, I would think that GenG make it to the finals no matter what. But now I'm like, ooh. That's alert, fraud alert, you know? So I think 7 and 8, yeah.
All right. Well, there you have it. Those are our fraud alert scores for Top Esports, LNG, and GenG. Let us know in the comments back home what you think down here below. And while you're there, click that subscribe button if you haven't already, if you want to see more quad boxes in action here on Power Spike. We've got 2 more segments for you. Back to the West, and then we'll look forward to our semifinal matches. But before we do, it's time to remind you about our friends that that are our partners throughout Power Spike all this year. It's our friends over at AG1. We bring it up to you guys every week because it is the daily health drink packed with nutrients to help alleviate bloating and support sustained energy and whole body health. I've been popping mine right now, a little bit late, but just make sure that when I go to bed, things will be good when I wake on up. It's definitely helped support my digestion, reduce bloating, and keep me going regularly, which is very, very important with how much Korean food I've been eating since I've been here, just to make sure that everything in there has been good. It has helped support my immune system as well, and that has always been great. I have not gotten sick since I've been here in Korea, and it's just been part of my daily routine here, Monty.
Yeah, it's been great. I just toss the creatine in there in the morning, shake it all up together. It's wonderful. I drink it first thing in the morning every day, and you know, it's got the prebiotics, probiotics, vitamins, everything you could possibly need, and tastes pretty good too. So I enjoy it. Yamato's recently been we've recently converted. How's your AG1 experience been, Yamato?
The way I would phrase it is like a safety blanket for my inconsistent diet, you know? Like
That's an
it's
excellent
good
way to
that
put it.
my baseline is so much higher because of AG1, because
He's
I
raising the
have
floor.
burger days, broccoli, chicken days, you know, it goes up and down because our schedules are messy and sometimes I run out of prep meals. So it's definitely like knowing that my standard is just higher due to AG1 in the morning as well,
That's a great way to put
and I
it.
followed Tom's advice with the electric zzz, that really it makes it a lot more pleasant.
Yeah. And now, if you guys haven't hopped on in the train yet with AG1 already, don't worry. It's not too late for you to start with AG1 and notice the difference for yourself. It's a great step towards investing your health, and I think you'll notice some great, amazing benefits from drinking it. Try AG1 and get a free bottle of vitamin D3, K2, and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase at drinkag1.com/LFN Legends. That's a $48 value, free if you go to drinkag1.com/LFN Legends. That's drinkag1.com/LFN Legends. Check it out. Thanks to our friends over at AG1, and thank you to all of you that have tweeted at us, posted in the comments, and let us know how your experience with AG1 has been. It's helped us a lot, and thank you for supporting Power Spike. Now let's go to the positive side of things and share two positives. Well, maybe not unless you're Monty, who had the angry take about FlyQuest losing. I guess then you're just comparing two losers at Worlds. Who are you keeping or kicking as the best team in the West now that all the West is out? Are you keeping G2 or FlyQuest? Very interesting. Maybe, yeah. Yeah, we'll go with who's the best team in the world. Is it this G2 team or is it this FlyQuest team? Because who knows what's going to happen in the future. Let's get into it. Keep or kick. Yamato, you went first last time, so you don't get to go first this time. Monty, let's have you.
Yeah. I like this conversation just because, like, obviously at the end of Swiss there were the lamentations. Oh no, G2, they ran into BLG, and now they didn't actually get their chance to hit the. If only they had drawn FlyQuest, then maybe. I mean, they could have drawn FlyQuest, right? And we could have seen these teams go against each other. But I think it's an interesting conversation, particularly with the G2 rumors about, switching out support and jungle on this roster and the plans heading towards the future. Like, I think both of these teams probably deserve to be in top 8. But we didn't actually get that result. But I think that probably a lot of people's opinions of FlyQuest have now changed, because it's not like, they got the free ticket just by beating Team Liquid again, and they were unable to actually clear some of these other teams that were put in front of them. They didn't have the opportunity, is the other side of this, to play these other teams. Yes, they lost to D+. That was unfortunate. But people will say, perhaps falsely, that they put up a kind of competitive series against Hanwha Life, took a game off of them. And so now we actually get to see them against the team that I think the majority of people tipped as the world favorites coming into this event. And they performed really well. And the question, unfortunately, we'll never get to see them play against each other because Riot hates good formats. But I think, for me at least, at this particular tournament, I would, at this point, just hand it to FlyQuest. Like, their improvement was incredibly notable. And I think they were really, like, firing on all cylinders, not only in terms of their actual individual performances, but also in terms of the pick and bans. I mean, the things that we expect from G2, the surprise pick halfway through the event that then warps the meta and then all the teams have to ban it. That was actually FlyQuest at this event, right? That was actually FlyQuest pulling out, like, forcing a lot of pocket bans and having a variety of interesting strategies and many, many, many picks that people have to consider, because especially their, FlyQuest jungle and top pools are a little bit weird, right? And I think that this was just an exceptional series of games by FlyQuest, and they caught the throws that GenG said. And, like, as stupid as this sounds, catching the throws is not something that NA teams have typically been able to do.
Yep, it's not something that G2 did throughout the tournament, right? Like if you look at G2, they ended up having the Hanwha Life game where Hanwha Life mega griefed right before Baron. Yep. G2 got multiple Barons in that game. They weren't able to close it up.
Even the steal too. They got everything.
That's for me why I'm leaning FlyQuest is when I look at G2, there was so many games that I just expected them to win that they did, like the 3 inhib game where they end up giving up Baron versus T1. Like I don't know. I just feel like G2, if they're really locked in, they just win that game. So I'll lean FlyQuest. I thought that FlyQuest at least like they played harder opponents, right? They played Hanwha Life and GenG. I mean, obviously those BLG for G2. I mean, I guess we'll see, right? Because they did play BLG T1.
BLG, I guess feels pretty.
For G2. Yeah, I would think that like when you look at going into the tournament, what are the like expectations? I would say that the BLG that they played was not the BLG that we saw versus Hanwha Life. This was like Swiss choking BLG, and I would say that like, you know, I guess you could say the same thing for GenG after not playing for a while, but I just thought that like FlyQuest was showing me like setups at a higher level where it felt like when I was watching G2, they kept on having to make clutch plays to swing the game into their favor, and then they were like consistently losing outside of that. Like they weren't able to like play out advantages very well throughout the tournament. You look at the, you know, the game 3, the Rise game, it's like, okay, like they're catching, okay, they get a catch, they get a good Rise hold, and then they're like consistently losing. Then they do like the Baron where they throw it at the Baron, then they start like trying to make plays to come back again. Like I don't know, it just feels like it was tough for G2, and there was just games that I expected them to win. Like the T1 game 2, I just feel like they have to win that. Like
Yamato.
On my end, forgive me, my microphone was muted. Just on my end, I think the G2 started playing way too late. I think that the Bilibili series, even the game 1, is like in terms of the prep work, like especially like MSI in previous moments, I praised G2's coaching staff and the preparationary work. And I expected so much more. They always come out in a tournament.
Where was the crazy level 1, man? I'm so used to that now. They always got one. They got one that's good in them, right?
There was just so little to hang in the Christmas tree, because I look back at some of the early drafts, like looking at like that game 1 where the enemy team is just dropping Jack Scanner 1-2, like the whole world just saw that and was like, okay, so the series just starts 0-1 up. Like it just seems so.
We picked Nocturne into Bin's Jacks. Wow, like that didn't turn out well. Big surprise. Unlucky guys.
It's just so like they were so rigid in terms of how they like swapped their drafts around, and finally when their backs were against the wall, I felt like they started playing in that game 2 and then game 3. Like that was a very competitive game. Like they could have won and clutched that out too. Like Yike just engaged and like they threw the whole Nash situation, and that was the story of G2. And FlyQuest managed to push the ball into goal. You know, regardless of how slow, they managed to do it. They managed to punish whatever the enemy presented. And that is always like our biggest gripe, is that you sit there and watch the games and you just feel like the Western team is going to eventually lose. And when FlyQuest won, that's like, oh shit, they got it done. And then G2 had so many moments like that. We mentioned the fucking 3 Nashers, we mentioned the 3 inhibs, we mentioned the owner steal on Nash, we mentioned the Yike and disengage. Like these are moments that you need to seize the opportunity. I mentioned Hansama as well with the Gragas thing. Like that to me just puts FlyQuest above that, because preparationary wise, I think that they were cutting edge. The play wise were really fucking good too. Steady improvement, steady reads. I think FlyQuest is fair to say that they're the best Western team.
Damn.
I'll also say that like there was no like with FlyQuest when we were really hopeful when they were beating GenG, when they beat GenG in that game 3. I didn't feel that excitement out of G2 this entire event. Like there was like I just felt like I wasn't getting the real G2 in a lot of games. Like the Hanwha Life game, I wanted to see them close it. Like I wanted to see them just like really put the pressure on these teams and push them further. The fact that they lost that game with 3 inhibs, like I said, I don't know. It just I never felt that hype where I'm like, holy fuck, they're actually doing it. They're playing like so well right now.
Yeah, if FlyQuest was definitely closing better, right? Like they would get a lead and hold it, and then actually choke GenG out on objectives. Whereas like G2, it was like false hope, like Dom says. It's like, oh, they're losing, but the other team ends. And then now we have a glimmer of hope, but the steps we have to go through to crawl our way back into this game is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you look at G2 and even the games that they ended up like, I think the only game where I was like really proud of the way they played throughout the entire game would be like game 2 versus BLG. The other games, even like the games that I'm mentioning here, mainly came off them like making a huge comeback play to get into the game. It didn't feel like they really had any games like FlyQuest game 1 versus GenG, where it's like, all right, we had like a good swap, we go to the objective, we win the fight, we like progress the game. Like obviously there's going to be hiccups, it's not going to be perfect when you're playing against one of the best teams in the world as a Western team, but it was like that was a pretty solid game 1 where I was like, okay, beat them in the fights where your team should win. You made like good decisions, like you stacked Drakes at the right time. Like they just didn't have many solid games. A lot of their games came from like massive like comeback plays when the enemy team was overextending, which is what G2 is good at. But one of the things that I thought G2 would get better at throughout Worlds, and one thing I was hoping is that their early games would be better when they got to Worlds, and I just didn't see that from them. Like it seemed like they were kind of similar to how they were in LEC, where they would get behind a lot and then they would just make a play to come back into the game. And the difference is that this time they weren't winning all those games. Where in LEC, it felt like if they ever made that comeback play, they would just win the game out.
It's just funny. So it seems like we're all aligned here with FlyQuest's performance, making them the better team this Worlds, because we got to see what their best was. Whereas there's this, I think all of us and probably everyone watching G2 felt like they never achieved the potential, whereas FlyQuest achieved the more than what we thought their potential could be. And
I mean, how many Nocturne? We saw 4 games. How many games did they play total? They played what? They played 7 games total, and 4 of them were on Nocturne. Something like that.
1, 2, and then
maybe they played 8.
Yeah, I think they played 8. But yeah, a lot of it being rigid, as you said, in terms of the draft and the strategy and the read that they had, and not kind of pivoting away from that. Whereas FlyQuest, they make it through, they get their one shot, and we see Fiddlesticks, we see Set, everyone getting the opportunity to do so. So let me change the parameters of the question then here. Question number 2, which team would you rather take in a best of 5? Would you rather have G2 or would you rather have FlyQuest if they played head to head?
No idea. Literally no idea.
I still think you take FlyQuest. I still think you take FlyQuest in the head to head between the two teams. I just think they played the fundamentals just a lot better than G2. Like you could say like maybe they lack the same amount of individual playmaking capacity across the board. But I would say their floor was significantly higher. And I just take a team that actually can seize an opportunity and like close a game.
Yamato, come on, man.
In my mind, I think it would be very, very close, because I think it's just a question of what moment in time you're catching them, right? Like if FlyQuest played a series against the Orianna Nocturne G2, then I think the FlyQuest would win.
But like also about the Orianna Nocturne, had they played after this, like maybe G2 would have given that up, right? That's a good point.
Yeah. So it's like, for me, it's like, especially with the World Championship, I think like where your performance is very, very relevant to the day, right? The momentum is a hell of a thing, and how far you get pushed and how early you get to learn the lessons you need to learn is a hell of a thing. And I think a matchup between them could go either way. It's just a question of what moment in time will you catch them. It's hard, because I do think that Caps is like insane, and I think G2 have like capacity, especially with how BB played and so forth. But I think a part of me would lean towards Fly ever so slightly because of how much more they've just shown in terms of their Drake preparation, in terms of their side lane understanding, and also their draft understanding. And G2 would have to answer question marks if they played against each other.
I'm just so surprised, because we have such a worldwide viewer base, and up and down, everyone's saying we'd pick Fly here. And it's when you look at these rosters head to head, you're like, okay, Bwipo or BB. I think if you take the highs, you would, and don't worry about the floor, you would take BB. Well, I would think. You look at
but it's
quad.
It's team versus team. It's team versus team. And when you look at like FlyQuest versus G2, the thing that I don't like about G2 in the matchup is G2 is a team that was relying on big enemy misplays to come back into games, but they weren't a team that would step on your neck early. And I feel like FlyQuest was actually one of the more stable teams we had at this tournament when it comes to like how they were able to play once they had leads. And if you gave FlyQuest a free early game, it felt like they played significantly better than if like they were getting pressured. Like the Nidalee games from Canyon, like those were games where it's like they were always on the back foot. And that's something that we saw consistently for FlyQuest. when they were playing against the good early game teams, I mean, even TL, for example, they were getting shit on in the early game, and they were able to come back into the game, but it seemed a lot harder when FlyQuest ended up playing versus who was it? When they started playing versus Hanwha Life, you saw the same thing happen in the games that they lost, where they would just like get snowballed on pretty hard. And even though they were able to come back, like it was harder for them to play those types of games. But I think that G2 would probably give them too much breathing room based on how they played throughout the tournament. I feel like G2 was really like getting like 3K gold deficit was like commonplace for G2. It felt like.
Yeah. All right. Well, this one a little bit easier than what I thought it would be in terms of this or that. Everyone kind of or keep a kick. Everyone keeping FlyQuest on this one, both from this world or for
even
this
G2 is kicking G2, so like not even G2
right.
believes in G2.
It's damning. It's damning, right?
Yeah. Skumon coming into the roster allegedly, apparently, is the idea, but yeah, we'll see what happens in the future. So, keeping FlyQuest. Are you at home? European fans, are you at home? Did you feel the hope that FlyQuest brought? The goal that Bwipo said FlyQuest set out? Did you feel? Yep. Did you believe? Let us know in the comments below as you weigh in. Would you take G2 or FlyQuest? In this keeper kick. All right, one more segment to go, and it's to look at the future and also break down the Hanwha Life and BLG game, because we haven't done that one yet, but we'll do that as we look to the semi-final matches. But before we do, it's time to remind you about one of our friends, partners here on the show, and it's our friends over at MeUndies. Now, guys, being your most comfortable selves this fall starts from the waist down, whether you're gearing up for weekends spent on the couch watching endless hours of League or getting yourself back into the gym routine. Comfort is king. And that's why we and you can upgrade your underwear drawer with MeUndies. It has something for every guy this fall. Their micromodal fabric is breathable and comfortable, especially the ball caddy. Yamato, can you say ball caddy for us once?
No, you're muted.
Oh, he's
Ball
muted.
caddy.
Nice, he muted.
All right.
Ball caddy.
Thank you
Ball
very much.
Caddy.
There we go. All right. If you thought you needed a special pouch for your parts, if you thought you never needed that, take the hundreds of 5-star reviews as your sign that this could be your new favorite boxer brief. And now MeUndies has a cut for every guy's butt. Over 100 different styles, ranging from boxer briefs to jock straps to our special pouch underwear called the Yamato
Ball caddy.
that keeps you from bat winging ever again. Can we get some bat chests in the chat? These cuts come from over 100 different colors and print, ranging from black to all dinosaurs all over it. So prints are no problem. You'll be able to find that in MeUndies. MeUndies' signature fabric is soft as it is warm hug. Is as soft as a warm hug from your favorite sweater. It's breathable, it's stretchy, and oh so comfy, making it ideal for all day wear. So be your most comfortable self this fall with MeUndies. Get 20% off your order plus free shipping at MeUndies.com/powerspike. That's MeUndies.com/powerspike for 20% off plus free shipping. MeUndies, comfort from the outside in. Thanks to our friends over at MeUndies. Good job, Yamato. Yamato's been asking for a little bit more of the ad reads. He was ready for that one. That was good. All right. Time for our Galaxy Brain Club and a discussion about the semifinal matchups moving forward. Let's get into it.
All right. Let's do it.
Let's get into it. Thank you, Light, who is producing from Paris and was almost attacked by Paris and the Parisian. I don't know.
The French are attacking our producers.
Yeah. Like the pickpockets and all that stuff. He's staying in an area. They're having worlds in an area where crime is not low. There isn't a 0% chance that shit isn't happening.
I just love that when Riot holds worlds, they like pick the parts of these cities that are potentially the most dangerous. You know, one of my favorite things was remember in 2022 when Worlds was in San Francisco and they just like put the players in the tenderloin.
Yeah,
That's just
not
outrageous.
yeah. SF has like the Chase Center where that is. That's
yeah, that's
but
fine.
San Francisco has
There are some parts of San
That
Francisco
was
you
the
do
same
not want to be
2016,
in.
bro.
when
I've
I was
never
at
seen so
Golden.
many crackheads
Oh
and
yeah,
fentanyl heads. That was crazy, bro. 2016 San Francisco, like it was a maze
that
to
one.
walk through the streets. Like, it was crazy, bro.
Yamato, did you enjoy your time in the Tenderloin?
The tenderloin, bro.
That's what it's
it was
called.
dangerous,
That's
bro.
what it's called.
It was just dangerous, bro. I've said those stories so many times. Dom has heard them 82 times. I keep repeating them like a one-string banjo, but crackheads. It was definitely don't leave your hotel. It was dangerous at all times.
we when I was at Golden Guardians, we stayed up in the Bay Area for one. Like it was only like a weekend. We were practicing over at the esports arena in Oakland because their headquarters is still in Oakland. They're like, "Hey, take a cab," and I'm like, "No, it's a short walk. The guys want to walk. Let's walk." There was a homeless guy under a bridge, just like wailing like a ghoul, and we never walked again. That was my experience.
He didn't
with
have
San
a riddle
Francisco.
or anything. No riddle. Like no
No.
quest.
No. There wasn't. A homeless person under the bridge looking for the quest. The quest was like, "Hey, you got any of that good stuff?" No, we don't. We're not going to find any. We got to go practice to be last place. All right. Let's break down the battles of the first place teams. It was Hanwha Life Esports against BLG, which seemed to be, again, before we had the last match. I was like, wow, that was a great series back and forth between these two squads. Yamato, what did you make of the series of the 1-1s? What did you make of the series of the 1-1s?
I thought that series was amazing, like in terms of like the level, because How Our Lives came out so strong, and then the adaptations that we saw real time, because it's like the opinions of everything shifted so fast. Like we saw Billy like banning Jax twice, and then Silas was considered super strong, was the first pick, and then like the Galio came through when we got to see like Shun on Kindred. I feel like Billy, like always with teams at tournaments when they get pushed to the brink, it's like like your journey through a tournament, you're driving like a car, right? And it's like you drive over ditches, and then at some point at these junction points, you need to make really big decisions. And I feel like Billy realized, oh, Honest underperforming. Let's make him play Rakan. That was like a really big read. Having higher prior on AD, really big read, and then just making sure that they have strong team fight compositions, because that's where they can compete. I just saw that evolution was just beautiful to see real time, and How Our Life just couldn't keep up, even though they started so well in the series. So this to me was just a beautiful series across the board.
You know what's great about having Doran on your team is that it forces you to win every single best of 5 3-1, right? Because he just auto loses you a game every single time.
Yep.
he just maybe at least one. I will say at least one. So I mean, you could talk about the reads from this, but honestly, like Hanwha's failure to adapt, and I think we are going to see more teams, generally speaking, drafting ADs 1 through 3, because it feels like the pool gets a giga pinched now if you start to leave your ADs into second rotation. But like that's why we end up with, like, I think Viper on this MF in the last game. But a lot of this is like Doran. I thought Doran's performance was really quite tragic. Delight also, I think, struggled at times in this series. I guess I thought less of this series than you did, but I was happy mostly because of Hanwha's performance. But I think BLG continued to show their strengths, and we got to see like the Jun Wukong and the Jun Kindred come out, but also none of the counters to some of these champions. So felt like Hanwha was like leaving opportunities that they could have taken, like Doran playing actually Gragas in the final game or something like that I think probably would have been a lot better. So I think BLG, this is the BLG we wanted to see, that we expected to see at this event. So that pleased me, but man, there's some bad games there from players. I mean, that game 2 from Doran was terrible.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is expected because Doran is terrible, but people seem to just
I've been
not
saying
realize.
this for so long, and everybody's always like, no, Monty, you know, Doran's very stable. He's such a team player. I'm like, I guess, but he's the guy who, unless it's against Zeus, is just like folded in the top moments. I had to watch that Camille game in the finals. What the fuck was that?
The Camille game was horrible. I just feel like he made, because everyone has been on the train that Doran was terrible, but he's just had like these big series, like the one versus Zeus in 2023 spring finals. Like that one did so much heavy lifting for his career. You know, like everyone. Like, number one, I don't think that, like, Zeus has just been fucking horrible, like, unplayable into fucking Doran since then. But I feel like the narrative has gone so far with that where it's like, because Zeus is considered so good, it's like the fact that he beat Zeus or he was able to outplay Zeus in a key moment, it just completely changed how everyone views it. It's like, no, you know, like, Doran is the Zeus Slayer, so he's really good to have on your team because then you could always beat T1. It's just all these narratives come out. But, yeah, I mean, throughout the series, I think that BLG just... They showed why they were the best team in China, and we didn't get to see it so far at this entire event. But I mean, so we saw Delight suffer the same fate as Mickey when he played against the same style of BLG comp. When he was playing against the comp where they have the Kaisa and they can play in this wing formation with, like, you know, Jax on the side and like the Galio can ult in all the time. The Kindred doesn't have to walk up. You saw Delight suffer from the same thing. So I feel like Rel in general has kind of like lost some prio as the tournament's gone on. It feels like people have started favoring Rakan and things like that into Rel, whereas before it kind of seemed like, you know, it was just Rel Leona was being traded all the time. So it's been pretty interesting to see the Rel prio fall off, but you saw the difference of when Rel was played by Delight into GenG, and he had a really good Rel game versus a Rel game that was pretty bad here into BLG. And the reason why I feel like Delight is making all those mistakes is he's like trying to figure out where he's supposed to engage. He's spending so much time trying to figure out what he's supposed to do in the game that things are happening that are not good on the map, right? Like you're having situations where he's dying to Baron. It's like he's just not looking at his HP. He's like trying to figure out where am I supposed to flash combo. And yeah, I mean, I think it took him too long to realize that it's not a Rel game where you have to engage. It's a Rel game where you need to peel Viper, and it felt like that just didn't happen enough throughout the game.
Understand that either. Nobody understood that.
Yeah, nobody understood that throughout the game.
I mean, how did we feel of like Zeka and Viper's performance? Again, Zeka kind of like Doran, living off of this moment in his career. He got a boost by winning LCK this split, but you know, he was living off of the World Championship, the good month that they had as a part of DRX. It really felt like him and Viper were doing their damnness to get anything going.
What's so wacky about Viper is like Viper was not given the chance to play League of Legends. Like you look at the game 4 composition, and this is a comp that is literally designed to keep Viper alive. We on Silas, like Silas can be stealing, you know, Kindred ults. He could be stealing Galio ults. He could be doing things to keep Viper alive. And they picked MF, which makes him staying alive kind of difficult against like a Kaisa Galio Jax, right? But then they don't actually play like they want to keep Viper alive, even though he is the overwhelming source of damage on this particular team composition. And they do run comps where the expectation is for Viper to do a lot of damage, like they did in game 1. And so I feel like they're just not even playing to the win conditions of their comps a lot of the time. And Billy was much better about doing that. Like they knew their jobs in these scenarios. Like Jun knew his job was to control Viper's Zeri on Wukong, right? And he was going to flash on him even during Paranoia and just make sure that this Zeri couldn't pop off and like get a bunch of, you know, basically janitor clean up the fight during her ultimate. So it just feels like BLG was much more on point with understanding how these team fights needed to be played out. And that's an encouraging sign because I mean, I would like to see the Chovy versus Knight matchup in the final. That's what I want to see. So if I can get that, I would be happy. So it's good that we get to see the BLG actually getting in form here.
Yeah, thanks for breaking this one down, guys, just because we didn't really have an opportunity to really talk about these two teams in terms of...
I think it's encouraging signs for BLG. I don't think I think some of the games, some members of Hanwha played badly, But I also think like there were interesting game states, even in that final game, where they were kind of like trading flash timers, whereas like one time in every fight, one team would have like all the flashes and then the other team would have no flashes. And it was kind of going back and forth on some of these objectives.
Yeah.
But, BLG, I think definitely team fought better, definitely like absolutely deserved to win this series. And Hanwha did struggle a little bit, especially Dorian.
It's okay. People have just forgot that they're the number 1 seed from LCK. Everyone threw them away so quick. Have you noticed that? Like everyone just did. They're like T1 at Worlds. Like GenG's the real number 1. Like they just like they instantly kicked off Hanwha Live, bro.
Hanwha doesn't have any fans. And also, all of the T1 bandwagoners just come out at Worlds because they never watch the rest of League of Legends for the rest of the year, and they just show up at this time to shout about Faker, not having watched a single game of Faker prior to this moment in time. And that's what we're dealing with now.
And then they just tell you things that you didn't say about T1 and Faker. They're like, why did you predict top esports to beat them then? It's like, I predicted the opposite. Like, no, it is what it is. I even tried to like AoE it, like I even went on Casual Stream and I was like, hey guys, by the way, guys, I think that T1 is going to be top 4 at this tournament. And that wasn't even enough, bro. Like I tried to like send out the fucking messages everywhere I could. Like
this iteration of T1's roster that we've seen for almost 3 years now has never placed below top 3 at an event. Ever.
Yep. But Chovy has never lost a semifinal to Faker at Worlds. So one of them something has to give.
Yeah, there's a lot. Also, just a quick note about streaks and stuff. Peanut still will not have his opportunity to win a world championship, or I guess his opportunity will end despite being LCK champion on yet another franchise. Falls a little bit short here. All right.
Wasn't his fault this time. I wanted to do one more anecdote, which is on my stream. I made the following comparison for Doran. I said, Doran is basically an old iPad. And the way he's like not that he used to be cutting edge technology, maybe, but he was never actually like a PC or anything like that. He was just this fun little adequate toy, for your pastimes. You get to watch some Netflix on there while you're in bed. But the problem with him being an old iPad is you're like, what the fuck do I do with this thing? It's still an iPad. Like, I still kind of want it. Like, maybe I pick it up from time to time and watch some YouTube videos and it's convenient. But should I replace this iPad? Like, does the new iPad actually have enough new features for me to feel justified in the expense of replacing it? Because the iPad can do a lot, even if it's a few years old. And also, it's just annoying to get rid of it, man. Like, you have to take it to electronics recycling. Do I have to try and sell this thing to somebody else? Isn't it better just to hold on to it for a little while longer? The floor of the iPad, isn't it just good enough? And that's what Doran is. He's such a problem because he's not useless enough to get rid of, but he's also not useful enough to like really jazz you up in any kind of way or think it's going to like take your existence to the next level.
I mean, if you got rid of Doran, who could you possibly get in Korea?
There's only one player. There's only one. It's clear. Everyone else. Yeah, everyone else, you look down the list. It's not great. Like Perfect was the big call up this year from
like was pretty good, but like he's not going to be a super big upgrade over Doran.
He was
Keen's on GenG, so
he was like lucid, but fell off at the end. Like he was so consistent the first like round robin when the rest of the team was trying to figure out how the fuck to play with each other again, and BDD's Azir was bad. And then they got it together, but then Perfect started dipping at the end. It was clear as the only one that is like, oh, I would like maybe an opportunity to buy him. Do you want Kingen? Not really. Do you want Doran? Not really. And then you have Dudu and Dindin and Rascal, who's going to retirement because they have Frog behind him. And then you have Lord Morgan on Bro. So that's it. It's just clear, maybe. And I don't know if BNK is going to let him go. So you just might be stuck
I feel like
with
in
this
general,
iPad.
like I feel like they're like LCK, the good top laners it's so top heavy there, right? Like it's like you have like Zeus and Keen, and then it's like everyone was really hyped for Kingen before this Worlds. I thought Kingen was bad at this Worlds, like just straight up. Like I thought he was fucking awful like the entire
Even
time.
in regionals when they qualified against T1, my man was running it down, bro.
Yeah. I think he's like pretty overrated. I mean, we didn't even get to see like I mean, I said it on the last episode, we didn't even get to see his A trucks, his GP. We didn't even get to see what makes him good. So I thought he was just pretty bad overall. So I don't know, man. I think that it's like tough because I just don't see clear. I can't see clear competing with Keen and Zeus. I've watched a lot of clear because I was on the Fox train for a little bit. The fucking BNK train, as you guys like to say, so much every single time they play. So everyone has to say it 400 times, even though BNK is nowhere in their name. But I guess it's just for legal purposes they have to say BNK.
Yes.
I watched a lot of that team, and my God, like they are so far beneath the level of the other teams in the top 5 of LCK. It's like it's inconceivable they could even like be in the playoffs.
Yeah. Chat coming up with some interesting options. The Shy. I never say his name right. Nuggery.
What do you say, bro? How do you pronounce it normally? Actually, you know what? Maybe
Nuguri.
Yeah,
That's
but
what I say.
if you actually spell it in Korean, it's Noguri, which is raccoon. So anyway,
I've actually never seen it in Hangul. If I would have seen Hangul, then
and you got to remember that that's what we have to do. Like you can't call Zika. You have to call him Zeka, and then Faker. Actually, like
one on the broadcast, they actually brought it up and talked about it in the
even though he had a career,
series.
like we forget that he had a career in LPL where everyone called him Zika. He was called Zika on the broadcast, whatever. But like because like if you were to say Faker's name, we would say Paker, right? Like if we were going to use like how the pronunciation would be in Korean, we would call him Paker. So now we all have to call Faker Paker for the rest of his career, okay? Because we're calling Zika Zeka, we now have to call Faker Paker.
All right.
That's the compromise. Like I'm down. I will move over to calling him Zeka instead of Zika, as long as we just call Faker Paker for the rest of his career.
Check it off the bingo card. Bingo card.
I make up my own name, so I'm out of the loop here, bro. Like, I just call everyone I make new names all the time, so I blame the accent. Yeah, it's just that's my cheat code.
Monty, has there ever been an imported Chinese player to LCK?
No.
Okay. That was the other suggestion that chat threw out, and
you can just stop at imported player. There has never been one of any variety.
There's been a coach, though.
Just Yamato.
There's been a coach, though.
There's been a coach, and also I'll throw this one out. Griffin is on T1's 3rd tier team,
and Reckless is obviously on.
I mean, Reckless is on T1. I'm surprised they didn't play him against top esports, so he could get a world skin.
Actually, is that less ridiculous than the Pyke game? Would Reckless on a standard pick have been better than Keria on the Pyke pick?
No,
Keria was Super Saiyan, but never, bro.
All right. Sorry, I dragged us off to roster mania. Let's break down these matches. LPL versus LPL, storylines across, and LCK versus LCK. Storylines across. You could start in the mid lanes. You've got the old guard best mid lanes of those regions.
We just
the
saw
new guard best mid lanes. Yeah,
we just saw Weibo versus BLG. You know what I mean? Like, I think the scary thing about this was like, even with On playing Bard fucking terribly, like Weibo couldn't even win, right? So what's the hope? Do you have some hope for me, Dom?
I mean, they did it last year, even when it was impossible. So is what it is, bro. Who knows? Breathe. I mean, look, I would say Breathe has been fucking insane at this tournament. Like, Breathe has been so good for like zero reason. I don't even know what the fuck is going on. So, I mean, he's one of the people that it feels like can actually play Bin's champion pool. He can play like the Nard, Jax, like Renekton. Like he has all of them in the wheelhouse. I mean, he did lose the Rumble into Galio, but I think he'll be better at that. So I think they have angles. I mean, the other thing for Weibo would be, I think they play like the Yone plus Aurora like trade. I think that's better for them. I think they should leave up Night Yone and stuff like that. So, I mean, if they're able to catch him in a game 1, you can see this series snowball. I don't think it's like unwinnable for Weibo. I think Weibo has just been like underrated this entire tournament, though. Like everyone just treats them like they're such like insane dog shit, even though they've been like kind of good.
And in my mind on this matchup, like I think the issue for Weibo for the longest time, I feel like they've been very similar to what Like I think that the only outlying edge is that the Tarzan was capable of playing everything and he was really damn good at it. But now everything has become a little bit more streamlined in jungle, where like the champion choices are not the most mechanically exciting ones, but the ones that just have like an insane amount of like impact in their buttons, like Skarner or Vi or Sejuani. I think the main issue for Weibo in my mind is that I think that their gameplay looked so similar to a worse version of Bilibili for a very long time, where I think everything was around bottom side, pressuring bottom side and so forth. But this was like Bilibili of old before they did like the revamp with Way, of course. And I think that when I look at who Breeze is, I feel like he's a worse version of what Bin is, right? And when they play against each other matchup-wise, Breeze has always looked a lot worse than he did in the run-up to that finals. And I think that same thing can be said about the rest of the players too. I think now jungle situations too streamlined, and I think that with where Bilibili are in terms of their understanding of the meta and their strengths, I just think that Knight has a deeper pool and he does everything that you'd expect Xiaohu to do well, but just better. And I think the same thing for the bottom side, because I do think that Light and Crisp and Tarzan were very, very good at driving the game through bot, and they try to do that, but Bilibili are also like masters at this. Right? When they played at MSI and they played with Shun, the main force to be reckoned with was you're going to get dove on bot with the level 3 vibe coming in, because they were really, really swinging with their play. So I think Weibo is just like the little brother of what Bilibili is kind of similar to how JDG was to Bilibili in the previous year, where the matchup is just, it's too close to heart that Weibo just don't have additional strengths there.
Yeah, when I think about the learnings that I took away from the quarterfinal matches in terms of draft, it's the priority for Sylas that kind of popped up in the series from for BLG and Hanwha Life, whereas Xiaohu, we learned, can play Aurora, but then only had to play Orianna. It was Orianna, Aurora. Those are the two. Will Xiaohu be able to expand his pool beyond that at a high level? Can he play the Yone side of things? Will he, be comfortable on the Sylas trade into Knight? I think that's really interesting. Where are other champion matchups and learnings from the draft from their quarterfinals where that feels comfortable?
I think Weibo was actually pretty clever in the way they approached drafting to LNG, which maybe you could say like gives them an angle. Like, for example, you know that Weiwei's not going to play a lot of AP junglers. Like he wasn't doing that even when AP junglers were more present than they are now before some nerfs came through. So when they hand over the Yone to Scout, right, they like take away the Rumble, they take away the Sylas, they take away the Ziggs, because a lot of the time with LNG, the way they were supplementing AD mid laners was by playing Ziggs in the bot lane, right? And so it ends up that they kind of earn these one-dimensional like AD only compositions. And so I do think Weibo was like smart in how they tailored it to an opponent that they knew very well. And so perhaps there's a way that you can use that same knowledge of BLG to get certain advantages. Because I did think that Weibo they really limited LNG's options by preying on some of their weaknesses.
Sorry, Dom.
I mean, I think that some of the things that we brought up, like, Xiaohu played a good Yone. I think that is something that he should be comfortable with. I think that Knight's worst Aurora game, our worst game this entire tournament, was that Aurora game versus PSG. Like game 1, I think he played really poorly when it came to like lane phase and even like how he team fought. So I think that is like the advantage from Weibo, is I feel like it's more of like a Weibo meta than it is a BLG meta, but I just do think that BLG is the favorite. I do think they're better, but I don't think it's unwinnable.
Let's do Preds on this side of the bracket. Who you got? Yeah, Dom. Who you got?
I definitely think Crisp will be the biggest Pred this series. All right, what are we talking about?
Well, aiming was eliminated, so that's.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Who you got winning? God damn it.
Oh, who do I have winning? I think BLG will probably win like 3-1.
3-1. What do you have, Madi?
Yeah, I agree.
Yamato.
Bilibili win, yeah. I'm feeling a 3-0 though, but Bilibili win.
Damn. We talked about all this underrating of Weibo, and then 3-1-3-1-3-0. All right. Well, we'll find out. That's why we play the damn game. Opposite side, it is the perennial LCK matchup. The summer finals that they said on the broadcast a couple times. That was not the summer finals. That was the whole thing.
Yeah, wait. Okay, it's fine.
If only they had hired people from LCK.
No. It just made a mistake. Sometimes that happens. Something that happens.
Wait, what happened? Look me in. What happened?
They just don't know who played in the summer final. No one knows that Hanwha Life won LCK essentially. Like that is like the thing that I've gained the most from watching the Worlds broadcast is that like everyone just talks about T1 versus GenG, where it's like, wait, it was like Hanwha Life beat T1 2 times, like best of fives, and then and then Hanwha Life played against GenG twice and they went 1-1. I don't know. It just felt like no one actually knew that Hanwha Life beat GenG, but it is what it is, bro. They're like fraudulent 1 seed or something. I've just accepted that Worlds is where the just all of our like everything we do the whole year when it comes to like trying to set up narratives correctly just goes to die. Like Worlds is where like everything just becomes dog shit for like the next like 3 weeks, and then we just incorporate that into the whole next year where everything we say is going to be taken with a grain of salt, because who cares about like BLG versus T1 this year and like talking about that dynamic where they've played 2 best of 5s against each other? Why don't we just talk about the fact that LPL has never won a best of 5 at Worlds against T1, and people make it seem like there's been like 100 best of 5s or like that. Like it's like, bro, people don't play that much. Like people do not play much.
Also previous iterations of T1 are irrelevant to the conversation.
Completely
it's
irrelevant
literally
to the conversation.
only this iteration of T1 that fucking matters in that conversation. But don't worry, Dom, because soon all narrative will just be replaced by arcane advertisements. So we don't have to get mad anymore.
No, I still have to get mad. I think that like when we have like Knight playing versus Faker and people make it seem like it's just not even like it would, like if that even ends up being the final, that wouldn't even be worth talking about because like Faker beat the shit out of Knight in like the last like Worlds. Like, bro, they
Knight's
played
biggest achievement, bro. He should be so proud.
Yeah, I mean, he beat Faker in 3 best of 5s over the last 2 years. He lost 1 at Worlds though, so I guess like that's just the counter argument to everything, like there's no discussion. So what I've started doing is I've started just lying. Now I just lie publicly and I just make up narratives that never happen. I've been starting to say that Chovy has never lost the best of 5 to Faker at Worlds, even though he did lose Hanwha Life quarterfinals. I just start like saying things, and what I've realized is like there's not that much pushback because no one knows the fucking history of the game. So you can just like literally just make up random bullshit and say it, and now I've just became a complete liar with my analysis. So it's been going pretty well, bro. I've started like lying very consistently, and it is way more fun than actually trying to like constantly argue about like things that actually make sense.
What part is the most fun? Like what part is
the thing is, okay, so the main thing about lying that makes it so fun is that you're not actually like tied to the to like what you're saying, because what you're saying is bullshit. Like you're consciously lying. It's not like I'm making a mistake, I'm consciously lying. So then when like somebody defeats my narrative, I'm just like, oh well, whatever, like, and just go up and then you just lie again, you just make another lie up, and you just keep on bouncing.
They've turned Dom into a Redditor. My God.
Yes, exactly. Because that's why lying is so OP. There's just no counterplay to it because you just don't care. You could just continually lie over and over again.
That's exactly what the League of Legends subreddit is. You just comment with lies, and then nobody fact checks you, and then you when somebody calls you out, you just never acknowledge it and just continue the lie.
Yep, exactly. I love lying. It's so much more OP.
I have an example where there was like a thread about like humanoid Razork work ethic. It's like, yeah, and the top comment is Yamato said this, and I said, I never said it. I comment and I say, guys, I never said this, and then it's like 9 upvotes in comparison to 2K. Like it's just into the void, you know? Just fuck me, right?
Yeah, no, like I've seen that about myself where they're like, Dom said on stream that like this was the truth, and it's like, what the fuck? I never said anything about that. I don't know. Like it'll always be something about like my personal life. It'll be like, oh, Dom said that he's like abused his girlfriend on his stream before. It's like, what the fuck? Like, why would I ever say like what the hell is going on here? You know, like
on Summoning Insight. So my League of Legends wiki, has a bunch of like facts about me, and Thorin would literally on Summoning Insight say, "This is a lie, but don't timestamp this. Timestamp it starting now." And he would be like, Monty's favorite band is Creed. And then people would edit that into the wiki and link to the timestamp after Thorin said he was lying. And so now there's just a bunch of lies about my life.
Yeah. Dude, I love it. I love it. Like ever since I've started lying, my life has been so much better. Because the thing is, like when you put time into like actually making a solid argument, like you think about it in your head, and you're like, oh wow, this is like a useful piece of information that I'm putting out here. This is great context for it. I think that this will be very nice for like the viewers to interpret the next series that we're about to watch through the lens of. Like when you do that and then somebody just starts like attacking it, you feel bad, you feel married to the information because you worked hard on it. But when you lie, you have none of that. So it's like freedom, bro. I saw something before this where it was like, it's like the human thinks that he's free compared to the chimpanzee, but then a chimpanzee can jack off in public. Like it can masturbate in the cage publicly. So who is really free, bro? Like, and now I feel like I've achieved real freedom because I am just jacking off in public. Perfect, bro.
And that's how we knew Loco Doco was free. If you know, you know.
Yep.
Yeah,
this is just me being disgusting in public and just lying all the time, and I've achieved true freedom. Nice.
Yeah.
Excellent.
That was a good callback there, Monty. All right, let's close it on out. It has been 10 meetings. I don't want to lie here. 10 meetings in a row, not best of fives, but meetings in a row that GenG have won. You have to go back to spring playoffs 2023, the last time that T1 has defeated GenG in a best of series, best of three, best of fives. How do we feel like this one's playing out given the form of these squads? Because that's probably the best way to do it, not how you would calculate the year and all that shit. It's the form of these squads. Yamato, since, I truthfully don't want to hurt your feelings. You can go first.
You're so for bringing that up. I think GenG favorite. I think that's easy to say. Like I think the arguments for T1 is like just enemy bot lane is underperforming. I think they've solved a big issue that they have in how they move around with support, because their jungle support synergy has always been non-existent to me. Like when I look at the jungle support synergy, I think Delight and Peanut way better, Tian and Mykles way better, right? Not that it's showed in that fucking series, but there's some jungle support pairings that play more self-sufficient and very, very selfish. And sometimes in some games you can get away with that, and it's really, really good because your jungler farms super much, like Canyon does, for example, with Lehends, or like Ona does with Korea. But I think that they have solved the problem by just always slamming a really giga mobile support on 5. Rakan is solving a lot of issues for teams because you can steal vision, put vision down without any risk. He played Bard, Pyke, he was just drifting all over the map, first tempo-wise, putting down vision, and they could surpass this issue of the jungle support synergy, which I think is a very, very big plus. Additionally, I think T1 lane swapping is way better than what GenG have shown. Because GenG, for example, in the 2 games there was lane swaps against, of course, FlyQuest, they were in extremely losing positions. Like in that opening game, what Canyon was doing, like Inspired was completely like outpathing him because he took Wolves and they blocked off the bottom side of the camps. He took the top side. Canyon was on 16 CS, and then he tried to steal enemy golems, and it was just all gone. Like their lane swaps are looking really, really rough. So if there's any point of entry, I think it's the underperformance of GenG's bot lane, and additionally the fact that their lane swaps are looking a lot better. And other than that, I think the usual details about GenG, that they should be favored because of the pedigree of Key and Canyon and so forth, in terms of how they adapt in cities and how they play stylistically, I think is something that everybody knows of, or the rest of the panel can say. Otherwise, I will just steal the conversation. So go ahead.
I think the important thing.
Before we go further, I would just like to say that T1 has never lost the best of 5 at Worlds. So like, I think that is like something that going into this best of 5, like I think that's going to be something that they really lean on going forward.
All right. Well, with that knowledge, Monty,
The I too have memory hold DRX's win. I choose not to remember that also.
I mean, look, like this is what happens, bro. Like other people can lie, but like if you ever make a mistake, then people will just say you're lying. So might as well just lie all the time, bro. Fuck it. Like it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter at this point. Just lie all the time. I'm
Dom's
lying
politician career starts today.
Yep.
Holy.
I've had it with Reddit, bro. I've had it with Redditors. There was a time where I misremembered a matchup. They're like, Dom lied about the GP Jace matchup. So what else could he be lying about? Like maybe he never even played in the LCS. Like people are actually that fucking mentally ill. So it's like, like I'm just down to like actually just embrace it, bro. That's my brand. I'm gonna be the lying streamer.
I already made a mistake. They T1 beat GenG at MSI last year. I totally forgot about that. But I was looking at the domestic. So I'm already a liar. Now it's nine best ofs in a row. Nine.
It felt good, right? It felt good when you lied. It like feels
no, it was. I felt bad. All right, Monty, go ahead. Weigh on the stairs.
So I think it's hard to evaluate T1 because Top played so horribly, but I think we can say certain things about T1's performance now versus when they were looking really out of sorts, particularly in summer playoffs, which is that, the big problem with T1 is that T1 by themselves felt off a lot of the time. They were taking riskier Barons than they would normally do it. It wasn't the clever like Baron sneak. It was like a hard force because it felt desperate. They were really not coordinated very well around their engages. One player would be trying to engage, and the rest of the team would be going out. What we're seeing from T1 right now is a lot cleaner play in the ways that they can actually affect it, right? That we can look at it and say, okay, you guys are all on the same page when you're making this play. We're all not going to fight this fight. We're all going to cross map. We're all going to go in at the same time. And I think that was really the most disturbing thing about T1 coming into Worlds was like the things that they had typically done well, they were just not doing well anymore. And that's where you wonder, are the wheels coming off? Right. But they have somewhat, it feels like, rectified this problem. Now, was it against a team that was putting up any resistance in this best of 5? No. But in the ways we could independently analyze them, I think that they have shown much more cohesion and much more streamlined decision making than we had seen in the later stages of summer. Now, they also have a better, meta, as we expected for them, right? Like, we get to see, now we're starting to see the Caitlyn come out, which may actually be a very valuable pick for T1. They weren't the first team to play it, but it is one of Gumayushi's signature picks. And it feels as though the AD pool is just shrinking smaller and smaller and smaller. And like we said, maybe demanding top 3 picks on each side right now to avoid it getting super pinched. So Guma maybe having a few more champions that he's going to be comfortable on feels, pretty good. Faker has a pretty good champion pool for this meta. The Yone, while it might be a problem because Faker's not too good on it, obviously that's a flex pick for them, which does give them a certain amount of strength, right? Owner's been having a good tournament. I don't think they will win, but I do think that this iteration of T1 is going to be more impressive than the one that we saw in summer playoffs within the context of this bracket. So that said, I still think GenG probably 3-1 again. I hope it's probably a 3-2, but I do think that this will be a comfort match to get GenG back on point. They're going to be back in the groove of competing again after having that long break, and I think they will take T1 very seriously. So I think GenG wins this.
Yeah, I think that when GenG plays against T1, whenever GenG's in form, they have been able to strangle up T1 almost every single time. It feels like GenG is just the counter to T1 with how they play. But then again, I mean, GenG's strengths didn't show at all versus FlyQuest for the most part. So we'll see what type of form they're in. I just think that their setups have always been, it's kind of like how G2 ended up playing versus BLG, where it felt like they just have to make these plays to swing the game back into their favor. That's kind of how I always viewed T1 versus GenG. If T1 can get a creative Baron, or they can get a good 20-minute Baron start, or they can clutch out a team fight where GenG's not fully set up, then they can win. But whenever the game was going long and you come to these standoffs mid to late game, it always felt like GenG was able to win. So I wonder what approach GenG is going to have, because with how Faker has been playing at this event, I wonder if, because he's playing more of the Ari, Silas, this type of stuff, if they just ban out one thing I've been saying the whole time about T1 that I think they should be challenged on is the Aurora Yone trade. The way that GenG ended up leaving it up in game number 5 versus FlyQuest. I think that they could do the same type of thing versus Faker. I'm not convinced that Faker is going to be a top tier Yone player at this tournament, and I think that GenG should invite like the Smolder Yone matchup. They should invite these types of things in order to make the game just a very comfortable game for GenG. So I wonder how they're going to prep for it. I think that's really important. But yeah, like it always feels like GenG is just outscaling T1, and T1 has to do so much in order to win. And I think that GenG plays like side lanes a lot better generally. They're able to generate more gold. And yeah, like 2v1s, it's been weird because sure, GenG had some 2v1 losses to FlyQuest, but I feel like their 2v1s were one of the main reasons they were able to win MSI, like versus BLG. So I don't know. I think that it would be a massive upset though if T1 end up winning. And it will just unwrite everything for the whole year, like we won't be able to talk about T1 honestly, even though like GenG has been the better team for the entire year.
Also, I will point this out, but
yeah, go ahead.
To your point about Smolder, Zeka like shit on T1 with Smolder, like in the 2 times they faced in playoffs, and Faker Smolder was pretty bad. It was pretty bad.
Most of his ADs were bad. He was kind of okay at Corki towards the end, but his Corki, his Tristana, like this is just not how they wanted to play, right? Like Faker wants to be on. It feels like Faker wants to be on Ahri this tournament. He wants to be on Ahri. He wants to be on Silas. He wants to be on some type of like playmaking champion.
Yep. He's even
Galio could be good for him.
Orianna, like the Orianna's been up and he's been not picking it, right? So that's been interesting.
What I would add as well is I think everyone is praising T1 for winning all of the red side games, but I think it's very evident that it's better for them to be on red because of Keria being allowed to pick later. He's played Nico, Bard, he's played the damn Pike as well, right? And then the Rakan also looked solid with the Zyra Khan answering to Kaiser. I think that's something that is very helpful for them, and I think that challenging them on that where Keria is forced to blind pick, because I think if the super matchup is like Rel versus Leona, I would always favor the opposite side in Lehen's hands. Another detail for me is I think Gumayushi is a fantastic player, but in situations like I don't see Gumayushi as a strong Ezreal. I don't see him as a strong Kaiser. Like Ashe is pretty solid, but this is where another layer of like in terms of the evolution that we saw in all of the best of fives, where AD carry was prioritized 1, 2, 3 was a very, very like important detail. Because I think if Ashe is banned and Kalista often gets banned too in the 1, 2, 3, the fact that FaZe wants to play Kaiser, wants to play Ezreal, I think can be advantageous too in terms of where like the meta is resting. But I think you just have to challenge them. I think red side might just be better against T1 because I do think that Zeus and Keria thrive when they get to counterpick because, of course, Faker and Owner are always just going to blind to set up the rest of the boys in the team.
I can see the Kalista getting through due to the fact that everyone's been lane swapping and it's kind of, they can use that to bypass the early power of it. But I like your point about Ezreal. I remember Guma's Ezreal from the regular season, and when they were struggling the most, he was shifting. It was bad shifts. It was bad shift forward. So
he's not good with like the Zeri Ezreal. Like too much mobility for Guma is bad. He needs like the Xayah, the Caitlyn. Like that's like Varus, Jhin, Ashe. Like he needs like, Jinx affiliate. Yeah, like putting the dash on Guma just gives him too much. He has too much testo for that ability.
Yeah. All right. Well, wait, Yamato, who do you have winning on this one?
GenG has. Yeah, GenG win.
GenG BLG final, Knight versus Chovy, the ultimate storyline. So, and we'll hear all about it in between Arcane advertisements in the final. It'll be great.
And then no matter who wins, like it'll either be that like it'll either be just GenG won, or it'll be it's because the LPL got lucky. They didn't have to face T1 at Worlds, and that'll be the fucking narrative. Can't
Someone
wait.
has to be a choker as well, right? Either Knight or Chovy are chokers forever if they lose a World Finals, right?
True.
Doesn't apply to Faker though. I want you to know that losing World Finals doesn't make Faker a choker.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's lost. This would be the third semifinal that he lost. I guess no, not the third semifinal. Probably the third semifinal, second semifinal. He's lost 2 already. Whatever. Just lie.
Just lie. Just lie.
That's what we learned
pro
from this
lying.
episode. The thing that we're
Someone's
not going to pro lie
out of context, bro. It's going to be a mess. They're going to weaponize this dumb.
I can't wait. I know. I love it. I love it. And then I'll just lie about it. I will say that I never said that. Like I never said I was pro lying. Like, this is the thing is just like I think that it's very OP, bro. You just have to be willing to just completely disconnect from the conversation. It's really OP.
All right. Well, this isn't a lie. We would like you to like and subscribe and comment below who you think is going to win these semifinals. Will we get the two mid lane prodigies from the LPL and the LCK? Will it be a salty runback, which not a lot of people believe that it's going to be? I mean, T1 fans maybe. Or will it be any sort of amalgamation of that? Let us know in the comments below, and when you're there, give us a like.
Also, comment with your favorite outrageous lie about League of Legends history.
No, your favorite outrageous lie about one of us four. That is what I want to see. You can just make it up. Yeah, Monty loving Creed and that being in his Leaguepedia is pretty fucking funny.
Dude, what it said, my Leaguepedia at one time, I'm not sure if it says it anymore. I don't even know what this means, guys. It says, I once challenged a Quaker to a wrestling match and lost. I don't know what that's supposed to mean.
A Quaker?
A Quaker,
What's a
yes.
Quaker?
A Quaker is a Christian religious sect.
It was generally, so I'm American. I barely remember this. Generally, when I think of a Quaker, it's like it was the religious sect of the first people that came over from England. They landed on Plymouth Rock. They were known as
No,
Quakers.
those are pilgrims. They're different than Quakers, but anyway.
Were they?
Someone just made this up.
It is a particularly early, like so Quakerism, they worship by like sitting in a meeting house together in silence, and then when somebody wants to speak, they stand up and say something.
And someone made this up about you.
It's a contemplative version of Christianity. It is very interesting, actually.
There's no truth about it. Did you wrestle?
In what context I challenged a Quaker to a wrestling match and lost? I do not know the answer to that.
It would not challenge him to a wrestling match, and he would not lose. Both lies. All right. Y'all, it has been a long-ass episode. I now understand what it's like to host Summoning Insight, I guess. This was 3 hours on the record thing, and
it's our longest. It's okay. I mean, this is like we had a lot of epic stuff to talk about today. So
we did a great a great quarterfinals, a great North American showing. Still losers according to Monty. They still lost, but it didn't matter. Great job, FlyQuest. And then we'll see who will be the ones to play in the finals at the O2 London Arena for the 2024 World Championship on next week's episode. And of course, any of the hot takes, any of the hot roster news that comes on out, we'll cover it all. Thank you for joining us here on our first ever Quad Box, and we'll see you next week for more Power Spike.